Welcome to Infinite History Stories. From ancient high-tech engineering to lost cities hidden beneath the earth, our world is full of things that simply shouldn't exist. The impossible wheel, a mystery 300 million years in the making, is going to make you rethink everything you thought you knew. It was 2008, and a group of coal miners in Donetsk, Ukraine, are doing their thing. They're mining, digging deep into the earth's crust, when they stumble upon something very strange. It's a wheel. There is a wheel stuck in the ceiling of the mine tunnel. Not the kind of wheel from a modern shopping cart either. The wheel in the coal mine is more like a wagon wheel, but it is embedded deep in the rock that is 200 million years older than when the dinosaurs went extinct. So, where did this wheel come from? Is it from an ancient piece of machinery from a lost civilization, advanced tech, a prehistoric monster truck? This epic adventure from almost 20 years ago has gone down in history as one of the most jaw-dropping, out-of-place artifacts ever found. It was uncovered at a dizzying depth of almost 3,000 feet. But there's a bit of a twist. The Ukrainian miners didn't find the actual wheel itself, but an imprint in the sandstone ceiling. They unfortunately did not find the entire wheel. Sad as it is to say, it was only the imprint, but that imprint is very convincing. And what else do you expect from something that's 300 million years old? In fact, the imprint was so intriguing that the deputy chief Viv Krulan snapped some photos and shared them with the foreman S. Kazatkin, who couldn't believe his eyes. The foreman couldn't believe it because the rock where the imprint was found belongs to the Carboniferous period, which is like the granddaddy of all geological epochs. It owes back 360 to 300 million years ago to a time when Earth was all swamps, giant insects, and supposedly no human beings. But if there were no humans, who made the wheel? Experts believe that if this wheel was real, it might have gotten stuck in ancient mud and then fossilized over eons through a process called dianesis. Sounds fancy, but basically mud turns into rock and voila, your ancient artifact gets a rock-solid legacy. But again, there were no humans 300 million years ago. No humans means no wheel, but the wheel exists. So how do you explain this bizarre paradox? I'm asking, how do you explain it, because I don't have the answers. Unfortunately, the wheel was never studied. According to the foreman I mentioned before, S. Kazatkin, the mine's owner at the time was more interested in profits than prehistoric mysteries. Obviously, despite the miners begging for scientists to investigate, the wheel got left behind when the mine closed in 2009. Now, the site is flooded, and those fascinating imprints are out of reach. But hey, at least the photo still exists, right? Like this selfie with one of the miners. This is a real documented discovery. Want to have a feeling you'll be puzzling over for a long time? Aliens, mastodons, and metal teeth. Is this strange object an alien artifact from a spaceship or a broken-off piece of an excavator's metal teeth? It seems like something that should be obvious, but just wait. The Wedge of Ayud is an aluminum mystery object that's been turning heads since 1974. That was the year that workers in Ord, Romania, were digging away when they stumbled upon something bizarre. Alongside a mastodon bones buried 35 feet deep in sandy soil, they found a wedge-shaped aluminum object. The small piece of metal weighs 4 to 5 pounds. The object was acquired by the Museum of History of Transylvania. And you'd think such a museum would be filled with vampire oddities, but apparently not. They stored the aluminum wedge away like a forgotten holiday fruitcake that it's too hard to eat. Then in 1995, a Romanian UFO magazine editor rediscovered the object. Why a UFO buff was poking around museum storage is another mystery. Research perhaps? Or maybe it was a slow year for alien sightings in Transylvania. Scientific tests showed that the wedge is made of aluminum, which is a metal not produced in its pure form until the 19th century, but it was found alongside mastodon bones, right? So, mastodons went extinct long before the 20th century. People started guessing that the origin of the object landed somewhere between aliens and time travelers. People wondered if Earth wasn't an intergalactic pit stop like a gas station where an alien ship lost a piece of its hull. How else to explain a block of aluminum that seems to be tens of thousands of years old? Let's hit pause on the weird theories for a second. Scientists stepped in with their party-pooping explanations, pointing out that the wedge looks suspiciously like a tooth from a modern excavator bucket. Facts and fantasy just can't get along. Metallurgical analysis revealed the wedge is made of 2000 series duraline, a modern aluminum alloy known for being tough and rust-resistant. Now, here's a fun fact. Aluminum doesn't spark, making it a go-to for mining equipment in combustible environments. Romania had plenty of mining operations in the 19th and 20th centuries, so the theory checks out. As for the wedgie's ancient look, that's courtesy of aluminum oxide, a fast-forming patina that can develop a white chalky layer in no time under the right conditions. Throw in some salty or acidic soil, and a piece of modern metal suddenly looks like it's been hanging out with the dinosaurs. But then, how did the aluminum wedge get stuck among the bones of an extinct dino? Saying the object is from a modern piece of machinery doesn't explain the place where it was found. Hence the reason why it's an out-of-place artifact. As you can see, there are still missing pieces of the puzzle. You might be thinking to yourself, surely someone carbon dated it, right? Right? Wrong. Aluminum can't be carbonated. Nice try, though. I like the way you think. And while there are ways to analyze PAT, as those require detailed studies and, actual access to the artifact, which is currently MIA. In the end, all of us truth seekers are left with more questions than answers. Who buried the wedge of Oud? Why was it with the bones? But the mystery is part of the fun. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And now for a quick break, because I want to give a big shout out to Shabi Peo and J.H. Winsky for supporting this channel. I'm so happy to be a part of your day. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. Human fossils from the dinosaur age. How do you feel about a human fossil so old it could have attended a dinosaur prom 130 million years ago? In 2016, one phone call kicked off a wild tale of ancient bones, scientific drama, and more twist than a telnola. And guess what? You're coming along for the ride. Ashley Cowie is a famous author of more than 2,000 articles on archaeology and science. In October 2015, he and his documentary crew found themselves climbing into the Colombian mountains en route to the home of Professor Jaime Gutierrez Lee. The professor's home wasn't your average cozy hillside getaway. This plate, it was like Fort Knox, but with more historical bling. Professor Gutierrez, Colombia's top architectural and industrial designer, welcomed Ashley and his crew with open arms and an unlimited supply of enthusiasm for his private collection of pre-Columbian artifacts. The professor's house doubled as a treasure trove of ancient gods, warriors, burial urns, jewelry, and tools. It was every aspiring archaeologist's dream closet. In the center of it all stood the star of our story, a fossil. The fossil was riddled with seashells. It had long bones and what looked suspiciously like human hand joints. Professor Gutierrez pointed at them and said, "These are knuckles." He claimed the fossil on display in his home was that of a human hand from 130 million years ago. The problem is that no known human ancestors existed 130 million years ago. The earliest primates, which could be considered the most distant ancestors to humans, appeared around the time the dinosaurs went extinct about 66 million years ago. It was like finding a smartphone in King Tut's tomb. Was this legit or just an ancient April Fool's joke? Professor Gutierrez said it was as legit as it gets, though not exactly in those odds. The professor claimed he personally excavated the fossil in 1999, finding it nestled in Cretaceous rock near Bogotá. He even had black and white photos of the excavation as evidence. But when pressed about scientific verification, the professor's story took a nosedive. Apparently, two scientists, Dr. Kent Hovind and Dr. Carl Bow, had examined the fossils. If those names don't ring a bell, let me enlighten you. Dr. Hovind is a young Earth creationist who once ran a Christian theme park and did prison time for tax-related crimes. Not exactly the most reliable source. Dr. B, meanwhile, believes that humans and dinosaurs coexisted because the Bible says so. Mainstream scientists don't think either of them are credible. Next enter more reputable scientists Dr. Peter Pritchard, Dr. Peter Menn, and Dr. Walter Joyce. They studied the fossil and confidently declared it wasn't a human hand at all, but a sea turtle flipper. Turns out sea turtles and humans have some bone structure similarities, like the same number of phalanges in their fingers, but the smoking gun turtle flippers have circular protruding pissup-form bones, unlike humans of long ones. So with one look, the experts identified turtle bones and the case was closed. When Ashley Cowie shared these findings with Professor Gutierrez, he took it in stride. He's convinced the experts are wrong. Whether it's a human hand or a turtle flipper, this fossil reminds us that history isn't just a series of facts, it's a puzzle, often missing a few pieces, a prehistoric railway junction, ancient traffic jam, or cosmic puzzle. This shocking discovery made in Malta is pretty cool. Malta is a stunning island in the Mediterranean Sea with a beautiful landscape and some seriously chill vibes. It's home to a series of parallel lines carved deep into some solid limestone, zigzagging across the terrain like some ancient railroad tracks gone rogue. Some have even noticed the similarities between the layout of the ancient tracks and Clapham Junction in the UK. What's even weirder, some of these cards, as the experts call them, just sort of stop. They lead off cliffs or go straight into the sea. If that doesn't scream mystery, I don't know what does. So, what's the deal with these tracks? Did ancient Maltese drivers take their chariots off-roading, or were they leaving behind something far more complex? These tracks are quite literal, off the rails. They can be seen crisscrossing the Maltese islands of Malta and Goole. Malta is both the name of the nation and the name of its main island. They are on two different islands, which itself is a little suspicious. The first thing to know is that these grooves aren't just surface scratches. Some reach depths of up to 2 feet deep and span 55 inches apart. That's roughly the width of a modern car, which is no coincidence. The fact that the tracks match the width of vehicles points to an ancient civilization having their own version of off-roading SUVs. But just how ancient are we talking? Theories about who made these tracks are as varied as all your favorite conspiracy theories. Some say they were left by Sicilian settlers around 2000 BC. Others believe the Phoenicians were involved around the 7th century BC, so about 2,700 years ago. And then there is Graham Hancock, the guy who loves a good ancient mystery a little too much, some might say. He claims the tracks were deliberately carved by tools and not worn down by wheels. Could these tracks be part of a Bronze Age superhighway? Maybe. There's one more piece of the mystery. Some ruts lead straight into the sea, disappearing underwater like a prehistoric Atlantis expressway. Were they built during a time when sea levels were lower? Or did ancient multi-civilizations just have a thing for amphibious carts? Archaeologist Anthony Bonanno suggests the ruts could be connected to Malta's famous megalithic temples, which are older than the pyramids and Stonehenge. He thinks these grooves might have been used to transport massive stone blocks to the temples, much like the possible construction methods at Stonehenge. But there's a catch. Most ruts don't start or end at the temples. What do you make of Malta's great mystery? Let me know any theories you have in the comments. The dinosaur dance floor in Bolivia. It's time to find out once and for all whether dinosaurs were really climbing walls in prehistoric Bolivia. This South American country is home to the most insane dinosaur wall of fame you are ever going to see. Welcome to Bolivia's Calorco, where scientists found dinosaur tracks seriously out of place. Rather than the tracks being found on the ground, they were discovered on an almost vertical wall. It's unlikely that dinosaurs took up rock climbing. What looks like a prehistoric Jurassic gym session is actually the result of some epic earth gymnastics. Millions of years ago, what is now a wall was a squishy lakeside mud flat, where dinos preserved their prints like nature's paparazzi. And then tectonic plate movements rudely tilted this ancient lake bed into a cliff. Ta-da! Instant vertical dino runway. It's a perfectly logical explanation to something that seems like fantasy. At Calorco, paleontologists have found 5,055 footprints from at least 15 different types of dinosaurs. That's not an error. I'm talking T-Rexes, titanosaurs. There was a lot going on here. And all of their footprints were found moving up a vertical wall, found not by scientists poking around with brushes and shovels, but by workers at Francesa, Bolivia's national cement company, in 1985. Fast forward to 1994, mining revealed the full extent of the wall, turning the whole thing into a paleontological gold mine. It's out of place because it seems like the dinosaurs were trying to do Spider-Man impressions, but it's just a trick of the Earth. So, if you're ever in Bolivia, be sure to check out the dinosaur wall. The tracks are about 68 million years old, the gateway to paradise and beyond. On a lush tropical island, Sland in Tonga is a massive stone doorway that might lead to another dimension. It stands out like a sore thumb in what is basically paradise. The doorway, or gateway if you prefer, has suspicious connections to ancient civilizations. It's called the Humunga Amai. It's a megalithic triathlon with a name that translates to the burden of Maui. This ancient structure isn't your average DIY project. Tonga is a Polynesian wonderland of nearly 200 islands scattered over 270,000 square miles in the South Pacific. It's a slice of heaven, but also remote and mysterious. The first settlers, the Lapita people, showed up here around 1500 BC, bringing with them their pottery, navigational genius, and knack for picking prime real estate. Imagine hopping between islands with no Google Maps or no paper maps. Talk about advanced knowledge. The island of Tongatapu, where this strange stone structure can be found, was the epicenter of Tonga's ancient civilization. Their capital, Mua, sounds like something straight out of a myth. The Humunga Amai is like Stonehenge's cooler tropical cousin. Standing about 17 feet tall, the trilithon is made of 3 coral limestone slabs, each weighing up to 40 tons, that's the weight of a school bus times 3. So, how did the Lapita people build this thing? 40 tons is simply too heavy of a weight for ancient islanders to move around. They didn't exactly have cranes handy. Legend has it the Maui demigods were the ones who built the stone gateway. Why? Because regular mortals would have probably thrown their backs out trying to lift those stones. The story goes that the Maui demigods lugged the coral behemoths on a giant commute to the island and built them. Mainstream historians say the Hyunga Amari was built around 1200 AD by King Tui Tatui as a grand entrance to his royal compound. Some even say it symbolized brotherly love among the king's sons. Sweet, but less exciting than the Maui demigods hauling rocks. Could the Polynesian islanders have realistically moved such heavy stones 800 years ago? Or is the gateway a leftover piece of technology from a lost civilization? There's one other possibility that might explain this enigma. In 1967, King Tofa Olotupu IV of Tonga proposed that the Humunga Maui had astronomical significance. Are you following me? These names are a bit tricky. Supposedly, it lines up with the solstices and D equinoxes acting like a giant solar calendar. Imagine using a 40-ton stone structure to tell you when to plant your crops or set sail. The king pointed out notches on the top stone marking the longest and shortest days of the year, plus 3 visible pathways align with the sun's movements. No one really knows why the Humunga Maui was built or how old it is. Sure, it could be from 1200 AD, but skeptics argue it could be much older like other prehistoric trilophones around the world. Before you visit, you should know the Humunga Amaui Historic Park has been on UNESCO tentative list since 2007. It's not officially a World Heritage Site yet, but hey, that means you should probably visit it now before it gets Insta-famous. The Kingdoms of the Crystal Skulls. What's the real story behind the legendary crystal skulls? They were cool enough to include in an Indiana Jones movie, so we definitely need to know more. Once upon a time in the mid-19th century, Europe was obsessed with ancient cultures. Even more obsessed than they are today. Like way more obsessed. Some crafty folks in Germany in a town called Adar Oberstein thought they might cash in on the craze. They made skulls out of F-quartz and passed them off as ancient artifacts. Does that mean the Aztec crystal skulls weren't made by the Aztecs? Does it mean they don't hold mystical powers or nanotechnology containing alien secrets? Let's travel back in time to Paris 1881. Ooh la la! French antiquities dealer Eugene Bolbang, who probably twirled his mustache, tried to sell a crystal skull as an Aztec artifact, but Mexico's National Museum wasn't buying it, literally and figuratively. The skull landed in the hands of Tiffany and Company, who sold it to the British Museum in 1897. The British Museum determined that the artifact was cool, but definitely not ancient. It was made of quartz from Brazil or Madagascar, 2 places that Mesoamericans hadn't been to. There was no way the quartz skull was Aztec. The British Museum skull is only one of many, though. There's also the infamous Mitchell Hedges skull, which comes with more twists than a pretzel factory. Allegedly discovered in Bays in 1924 by Anna Mitchell Hedges, this skull supposedly had mystical powers. It was allegedly ancient, yet the skull was carved with modern tools, like rotary drills. Your dentist could have made something similar with tools in his doctor-eated room of torture. Okay, maybe not quite that easily, but you get the point. Anna said she found the skull buried beneath a collapsed altar in Lubenton, but she alone recorded it. No one saw Anna find the skull, and nobody at Lubenton ever saw the skull at the dig site. The suspicious thing about Anna was that her father happened to be F.A. Mitchell Hedges, a popular novelist and adventurer. Recent evidence has revealed that he most likely purchased the skull at a Sotheby's auction in 1943. Then his daughter used the thing to try and make herself seem like the queen of the archaeologists. But this doesn't necessarily mean the skull isn't a real mystical object. Where it came from before the Sotheby's auction is unknown. Art restorer Frank Dorland claimed that when he inspected the treasure, he found no scratch marks that would have been made by primitive technology. He did find mechanical grinding on the teeth, though. Frank Dorland claimed the skull could be 12,000 years old. Some believe its crystal composition can heal diseases, cause visions, or predict the future. Anna claimed the skull helped her foresee the JFK assassination. Wait, Anna saw the assassination and didn't warn anyone. There are even more amazing claims involving the skulls, claims of Atlantis, aliens, and the Maya calendar's 2012 apocalypse predictions. Apparently, reuniting 13 mystical skulls would stop the end of the world. But the end of the world never came. There are skulls all over the place. The confusing part is that some seem like they might be real, but others are obviously fakes from Germany. There is so much forgery going on that no one knows which skulls might be examples of real prehistoric technology. In 2008, scientists got serious. Using electron microscopes and X-ray crystallography, they confirmed the skulls were made with modern abrasives like diamond-coated tools or silicon carbide. But were they made by modern humans or ancient humans with modern tools? Ancient China meets the Last Supper. Forget the Holy Grail. A far more perplexing relic has surfaced in the Holy Land. A 16th century artifact from China. This isn't just out of time, it's shockingly out of place. What archaeologists have here is a Chinese relic from Mount Zion, the very place where some say the Last Supper happened. Archaeologists from the Israeli Antiquities Authority unearthed a 16th century pork, Elaine bowl. The bull bears an inscription that reads, "Forever we will guard the eternal spring." Sounds poetic, right? But what's it doing in Jerusalem? The Holy Land isn't exactly known for its ties to ancient China. Michael Kernan, an Israeli archaeologist, was the lucky guy who spotted the bull peeking out of the dirt during excavation prep. 1 minute, Michael was clearing debris. The next, he was holding a centuries-old artifact that links the Holy City to Imperial China. The bull likely hails from the Ming dynasty, somewhere between 1520 and 1570 AD. That was when the Great Wall of China was standing tall and the Ottomans were ruling the roost in the Middle East. The ball is only 500 years old. Although that feels like forever ago, China and the Ottomans were already well acquainted 5 centuries before today. According to historians, about 20 Ottoman delegations visited China during the 15th to 17th centuries, proving the two empires were friendly in trade. Chinese scholar Molly even wrote in 1541 about Chinese merchants hanging out in cities like Beirut and Tripoli and possibly swinging by Jerusalem. I guess the spice trade came with porcelain perks. The point to remember is ancient empires you don't think of as being connected may have been very connected. But what brought the bull to Mount Zion specifically? Mount Zion isn't just any old hill. For Christians, it's the symbolic site of God's promises and the setting for the Last Supper. For Jews, it's where King David kept the Ark of the Covenant. And now it's where East meets West. The bowl could have been part of a merchant's lunch kit for all we know. Maybe it fell off a wagon. Nobody knows why it's on the hill, only that it came from China. How to look like an alien 101. Why have countless elongated skulls been found around the world? Can we blame aliens or ancient fashion trends? Imagine being so committed to a specific look that you started before you can even walk. That's cranial modification in a nutshell. Cultures all over the world, from ancient Peru to Papua New Guinea, and even extinct Neanderthals, decided to tweak their heads for various reasons. You can call it head shaping or cranial modification. It's the same either way you slice it. It was the practice of elongating a human head. And it started with babies. Science tells us that sometimes head shaping happened unintentionally, like when parents used cradle boards to strap their babies in place while multitasking. The constant pressure on the back of the skull caused it to grow, and let's call it creative directions. It also happened very intentionally. In many cultures, people bound their infants' heads on purpose between two hard boards of wood to create specific shapes. The skull grew long and obtuse. You're probably wondering why anyone would do this intentionally. The question is why so many different cultures that never met practice the same form of modification. It's like if everyone in your family got matching tattoos by accident. Let's look at some of the skulls scientists have found. For some cultures, it was purely aesthetic. The Arawi people of Papua New Guinea, for example, shaped their heads because they thought it looked good. No rituals, no ceremonies. It was pure vanity, apparently. In Peru, the Mogua Valley folks preferred one head shape, while their neighbors in the Qatari Valley rocked a different style. For the ancient Peruvians, head shape was indicative of which cultural group you belonged to. At sites like Tiwanaku in the Andes, archaeologists found both skulls with flattened foreheads, oblique skulls with circular shapes. This wasn't random. People in different valleys had strong preferences like regional hairstyles, and they knew how to tweak head shapes. Researchers B. Tatrick Blackwood and P.M. Danny studied how different binding methods created different head shapes. Radiographic analysis, which is basically X-rays for archaeologists, revealed how pressure changed the thickness of the skull over time. In Jericho, one of the oldest cities on the planet, some elongated skulls were found plastered, painted, and decorated like works of art. They were thought to link the living with their dead ancestors. Experts like Alexander Fletcher have even found evidence that some skulls were intentionally modified before death to make them stand out in the afterlife. In ancient France, having a distinct skull shape was kept for the upper class, so if anyone saw you coming, they would move out of your way. But what if it's all because of aliens? There are outstanding theories which suggest people elongated their heads to mimic the aliens that visited them, or rather their ancient ancestors thousands of years ago. They didn't come up with these stylish skulls on their own. If you are an ancient alien enthusiast, you've heard this theory before. Human beings that may have just been copying aliens. 300-million-year-old machines. Earlier, I told you about a wheel stuck in rock for 300 million years found in Ukraine, discovered in neighboring Russia. Was the machine part the exact same age? Are we dealing with a series of persistent pranks here? Or was there indeed a civilization with advanced machinery in the past of our planet? Meet Dmitry, a resident of Vladivostok, Russia. He was just trying to keep warm in the brutal Russian winter when his life changed forever. As he poked through a piece of coal destined for his furnace, he spotted something strange. Dmitry found a metallic rod in his coal, almost like a piece of a gear. He was like finding a car part in your bag of barbecue charcoal. Wild, right? Dmitry didn't just shrug it off, though, as many people would. He contacted local biologist Valerie Breyer, who along with other researchers took a closer look. They concluded that the object bore a suspicious resemblance to a toothed metal rail, the kind of thing you'd see in microscopes or tech gadgets. The coal itself came from coal mines and cockers, a regi, on where coal deposits are about 300 million years old. But does that mean the object is just as ancient? I don't know, maybe. Tests revealed it was made of 98% aluminum and 2% magnesium, a composition associated with human-made alloys. It also boasted 6 identical teeth, which experts agreed meant it was unlikely the object formed naturally. The discovery led to the inevitable whispers of ancient aliens. A Russian publication even floated the idea that extraterrestrials could have left it behind. Maybe the wheel in Ukraine and the metal rod in Russia could be linked. Buried inside a tree. Imagine being laid to rest in a hollow tree. Your body gradually becoming one with the earth, nourishing a new life. 2,200 years ago, a royal Celtic woman was buried just like this. Discovered in Switzerland, her burial was unlike any other. She was entombed in a tree in one of the strangest ancient burials ever found. Whoever this woman was, she was a highly respected member of her tribe. Clothed in a luxurious sheepskin coat and a dress woven from the finest wool, she was wearing bronze jewelry and a stunning necklace of amber and glass. Though her treasures might seem rustic today, they were CE symbols of wealth and power in the Iron Age. Based on all of these luxurious items, researchers say she commanded extreme respect and think she was either some sort of monarch or high priestess. The Celtic woman was found under the bustling city of Zurich, which goes to show just how much things have changed since her death in 200 BC. Underneath a power line, sewer systems, apartment complexes, and business towers, here she was buried in a tree. A detailed analysis was carried out by the Archaeology department in Zurich. They determined the woman to be about 40 at her time of death. Her bones show that she performed no manual labor during her life, so she likely lived a life of privilege. The mystery woman may have also been friends with a Celtic man found 260 feet away. This man must have been a formidable warrior during his time, since he was found buried with a sword, a shield, and a lance. Since he was buried around the same time as the woman, archaeologists think they may have been friends or even lovers. Some people might be surprised to hear there were Celts in Switzerland, since they are usually associated with Great Britain. But did you know that the Celts influenced way beyond that, all the way to Turkey? The Celts were particularly frustrating for the Romans. Their clashes with the Roman Empire are legendary. In Britain, the Romans forced them north into Scotland and built Hadrian's Wall to protect themselves from the Celts' wrath. If you'd like to be buried like this ancient Celtic priestess and be one with the earth just like she was over 2,000 years ago, you actually can. If you want a unique and eco-friendly burial option, look no further than Capsula Mundi. It's an egg-shaped organic casket that can be used for any kind of remains or ashes. While it is a sensitive subject, this biodegradable pod transforms human remains into a growing tree, offering a sustainable and poetic way to say goodbye. #not sponsored. Would you want to be buried in this way? Let me know in the comments. The mysterious murder of Takabauti. Archaeologists have confirmed that Northern Ireland's most famous Egyptian mummy was the victim of murder. This murder mystery is 2,600 years in the making. Researchers are desperately trying to figure out who stabbed Takabauti in the back during Egypt's 25th dynasty. Takabauti was a woman who lived in ancient Egypt, the capital of thieves located in what is currently Luxor. She was either the wife or mistress of a nobleman. She was also the daughter of an Egyptian priest. What happened in her life? Nobody knows. She was definitely in the upper class of Egyptian society, but that didn't stop her from being stabbed in the back in her early 20s. Takabauti wasn't stabbed in the back with a dagger, but rather a whole axe. Talk about a betrayal. After Napoleon went to Egypt in 1798, the mummy trade exploded. Takabauti was purchased by a wealthy merchant named Thomas Gregg in 1834. Thomas brought the mummy with him back to his home in Belfast, Northern Ireland. It was the first time people had seen anything like it. Being the first mummy around made Takabauti very famous. She was unwrapped in Belfast at a party in 1835. The hieroglyphs on her coffin were deciphered by Thomas Hanks, and they revealed the details of her heritage. Subsequent studies showed that Takabauti was a little rebellious. She was quite petite and had stylish auburn hair and didn't shave her head, even though that was the custom of the day. New technologies have allowed scientists to push the envelope in mummy research. A team of experienced TS from academic institutions across the UK ran a whole new scan on Takabauti, complete with CAT scans, carbon dating, DNA analysis, you name it. And that was how they found out she was murdered in cold blood. Retired surgeon Dr. Robert Noyne said Takabauti sustained a major wound to the rear of her upper left chest wall. The axe hit her near the shoulder, and she was dead within minutes. Here, take a look for yourself. This is the X-ray from R.D. Loyne showing Takabaut's move. What on earth happened here? Even though she died so long ago, everyone can relate to being stabbed in the back. We all know it's wrong. Was there justice for Takabauti? Was her killer ever found? These are the questions that researchers are hoping to answer. Scientists were able to identify the axe as a common tool for Egyptian soldiers. They also looked at Takabouti's DNA, which yielded some surprising results. Takabouti's DNA is more similar to modern European DNA than ancient Egyptian DNA. Her genetic footprint is rare, practically unheard of among Egyptians, both ancient and modern. She was definitely from a faraway land. She had 33 teeth instead of 32, and an extrovert, both of which are highly unusual. Was Takabouti killed for being different? Was she a spy? Perhaps it was a lover's quarrel. What are your thoughts on this cold case? And now for a quick break because it's shout-out time. I want to give a big thank you to Patrick Polite and Twigs Gaming for supporting this channel. Thanks so much, guys. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos about shocking discoveries. The abandoned village with a gruesome secret. There are an estimated 3,000 deserted medieval villages spread across Britain. Many of them you can explore for yourself, but some you might not want to. Like the village of Warren Percy, which was said to be founding a secret so grisly it's almost unbelievable. The abandoned village can be found near the market town of Moughton, right at the edge of what was once a dark and foreboding forest in North Yorkshire. But don't think you're going to find a village by checking a map. Modern maps don't show any trace of it. Only when you enter Warren Percy do you realize you're actually there. According to English Heritage, Warren Percy was once a bustling community, but not anymore. Everyone mysteriously disappeared in the 16th century, leaving behind a haunting legacy. Something bad happened here, and what archaeologists found has captivated the world. There is a church still standing in the village, although it is in pretty bad shape. The roof is gone and the walls are in the midst of collapsing. There are 2 manor houses, a pair of mills, and about 40 houses, all in various states of ruin. Researchers discovered a pit filled with the skeletal remains of more than 100 individuals. A closer examination revealed a horrifying truth. These people had been dismembered, decapitated, and even burned. Knife marks were found on 137 bones at Warren Percy. This was the beginning of a terrifying revelation. Experts from Historic England and Southampton University worked together to unravel what happened here. These gruesome acts were most likely rooted in medieval superstitions. Medieval people would cut up bodies before burying them to prevent corpses from rising out of their graves to spread disease among the living. In the Middle Ages, people believed that zombies were real. It must have been extremely scary here since this level of desecration has rarely been seen before. Simon Mays from Historic England said, "Warren Percy is a reminder of just how dark medieval beliefs could be." The village's haunting past offers a glimpse into a time when fear of the unknown could lead to extreme measures. The Doomsday Serpent. I hope you've had a great life because the apocalypse is right around the corner. Last weekend, a massive oarfish washed up off the coast of San Diego. This is never a good sign. A washed-up oarfish is always a harbinger of doom. This creature being seen at the surface is a surefire sign that something bad is about to happen, since they always tend to appear right before an earthquake or a tsunami. If you've never heard of an oarfish before, you're in for a treat. These enormous long fish look just like mythical serpents. There is nothing alive in this world today that looks more like a Chinese dragon or a Gyarados than an oarfish. They are considered the longest bony fish in the world, but we rarely see them since they are more at home in the very deep sea. Legend has it that oarfish, also known as king of herrings, can feel when an earthquake is coming. And although the Scripps Institution of Oceanography said no scientific correlation has ever been proven, plenty of people believe it to be true, especially in Asia. Right before Japan's earthquake in 2011, which turned into one of the worst natural disasters in living memory, oarfish began to appear. It was one of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded by humans. Lo and behold, 20 oarfish were discovered on beaches up and down Japan in the weeks and months prior. It was as if the oarfish could feel the earth rumbling deep in the ocean. Months before the earthquake happened, oarfish were warning us. The Japanese believe them to be messengers from the sea god's palace. The oarfish found in California in August 2024 was about 12 feet long, and that's only around half of their maximum length. Many oarfish grow to over 20 feet long. This one was found by a group of smugglers and kayakers in La Jolla Cove near downtown San Diego. It's a pretty big shock because up until now, hardly more than 2 dozen fish have ever been seen in California. That's less than 20 since 1901. The reason they are so hard to spot is that they live in the twilight zone of the ocean. This deep, dark realm has forced them to adapt in extraordinary ways. They have silvery skin which acts like a mirror reflecting the surrounding darkness and making them virtually invisible. It is almost as if they are slivers of light flickering in the abyss. What this discovery means for the coming weeks or months, nobody knows. The worst earthquake in American history could be about to go down. Could it be a precursor to a major earthquake, or is it merely a curious anomaly? Only time will tell, but keep an eye out because if more of these fish start appearing, we should probably be very afraid. The Metal Man of Bavaria. I bet you didn't know Bavaria had cyborgs in the 15th century. It's sort of true. Archaeologists in the German city of Freising found the skeleton of a man who had a prosthetic hand hundreds of years ago. This extraordinary find offers a glimpse into the ingenuity and medical advancements more than 500 years ago. This man must have lost his hand in a battle or an accident. Researchers think the man had his hand and fingers amputated. To replace it, he received a remarkably well-crafted iron prosthetic. Here's a picture of it from the Bavarian State Office for Monument Preservation. It's not in great shape, clearly stuck in a rusted lump, but if you look closely, you can see the individual iron fingers still visible. The iron hand was found partly by AC cause. Workers were digging up a pipeline when they came across the man's skeleton. He was buried near the boneyard of an old church between 1450 and 1620. He was around 40 years old at his time of death, which wasn't terrible for the Middle Ages. The truly remarkable thing is that doctors in medieval times were capable of creating functional prosthetics. There was already work going on to make life easier for amputees. There are now 50 different prostheses that have been found in Europe from around the Middle Ages. While the term cyborg might seem out of place for this era, the man's iron hand was a remarkable feat of engineering. It might seem primitive now, but covered in leather and strapped to his stump, it would have allowed him to perform basic tasks and help him do things that would have been impossible without it. This remarkable find challenges our perceptions of medieval technology and medicine, revealing a level of sophistication that was previously thought to be far ahead of its time. While some people were desecrating cemeteries, hoping people didn't rise from the dead to fight them, others were making advanced iron prosthetics. Our best friends' bones. Dogs have been humans' best friend for the last 15,000 years. A team of scientists from the University of Western Australia recently completed a study analysing dog remains that were found at a burial site in Saudi Arabia. The bones are now the earliest evidence of dog domestication in the Arabian Peninsula. Finding canine bones in the middle of the Arabian desert from 4000 BC was a huge surprise. The excavations were trying to find out more about what was going on in Arabia during the Stone Age. No one expected to find the remains of loyal pets. There are older domesticated dog skeletons that have been found around the world. In Israel, people were befriending dogs 12,000 years ago. Scientists found evidence of dogs being used in hunting expeditions in Jordan 500 years after that. What sets the Arabian discovery apart is, well, this is Arabia. The weather conditions here are brutal. Almost nothing survives the Arabian desert, not even hope. It's a place where you can perish in mere hours without water and the proper equipment. In fact, the Arabian Peninsula is considered the largest region in the world with no permanent rivers. It's as dry as a bone. It is also the worst possible place to go river rafting. There is another problem with finding domesticated dogs in Saudi Arabia. The people who did manage to live in this inhospitable land of sunstroke were isolated from the rest of the world. These were culturally remote tribal folk who had little contact with any civilization outside their desert, but still they had dogs. At the Harat Urid site, archaeologists found the tomb of a small family of 11, and they had a family dog. Archaeologists looked at every single bone that belonged to that dog and didn't find any indication that it was killed, sacrificed, or eaten. They actually found that it suffered from arthritis, indicating a long life of companionship. The dog was buried with the family in their tomb. It wasn't just a pet, it was a member of the family. This discovery doesn't push back the date for dog domestication, but it is a major breakthrough in understanding the relationship between dogs and ancient humans. Even in an isolated tribe in Saudi Arabia's sandy wasteland of a desert, people still had their furry friend, virus in a jar. Scientists were left speechless after detecting human blood, organs, and a virus in ancient Iron Age pottery. That's a lot of discoveries for the price of one. Around 2,600 years ago in what is now Germany, a man was struck by a mysterious illness. His symptoms were severe. Large bruises, nosebleeds, gum bleeding, and debilitating diarrhea. Despite desperate attempts to save him, the man succumbed to his ailment. His fellow villagers must have been so shocked by his condition that they decided to preserve him. They drained his blood and removed his organs, keeping them inside pottery vessels. Then they buried the jars underneath a mound of dirt. Modern archaeologists found the dirt pile, excavated the pottery, and sent it away for analysis. Scientists tested the blood on the pottery shards and found trace remnants of a disease that is still killing people today. It's a brutal sickness that most people don't even know exists. The disease is called Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever virus. You can get it just from being bitten by a tick. Lead researcher Connor W. Che said this is the first time that CCHFV has been identified in the archaeological record. It's also the only known example of human blood being poured into pottery and then buried in this part of Europe. Scientists are trying to figure out if this was a widespread burial practice or if the villagers only did it because of the brutal way their friend died. Maybe they thought his blood was corrupted, so they didn't want to bury his blood with his body. Or maybe they wanted to stop the spread of this disease or appease the spirits. In any case, 2,600 years ago was a tough time to be alive. Tombstones in the sea. For 800 years, medieval tombstones sat at the bottom of St. Utland Bay, forgotten and slowly eroding. Now, those slabs have been salvaged, raised to the surface by marine archaeologists at Bournemouth University. The ghoulish slabs of stone were found in the wreckage of England's oldest historic shipwreck. Being the oldest shipwreck is a big title. Researchers say the boat sank off the coast of Dorset when Henry III was still King of England. That was in the 13th century, more than 800 years ago. This site is called the Mortar Wreck. It earned its name because of the cargo spilled across the bottom of the sea. It was grinding mortars by the dozen. You know, like a mortar and pestle for grinding up herbs into potions. They were apparently in hot demand because the ship was carrying a ton of them. Although the site was first discovered in 1982, nobody realized it was a shipwreck. It looked like a pile of rubble. It wasn't until 2019 when Tom Cousins and a team from the University dove to the site themselves and started sifting through the rubble. That was when they began finding all the mortars and realized it was a shipwreck. The big shock was the grave slabs. These are perfectly preserved tombstones made from rare Purbeck marble which was quarried near Corfu Castle. The grave slabs were like numboot to a cemetery but never made it. Somewhere out there are graves without tombstones because of this shipwreck. There could be all kinds of other shocking things waiting to be found in the wreckage. Scientists still have a lot of work to do and will be carrying out their investigations over the next few years. The grave slabs were only recovered in the summer of 2024. The secret burials under New York City. Sunken tombstones are pretty cool, but what about buried crypts underneath the bustling streets of New York City? Burial vaults were recently found in the heart of NYU's campus during the replacements of a water main. The burial vaults are more than 200 years old and were found to contain the skeletons of about 12 people. New Yorkers have no idea what kinds of strange things they walk over every day. Researchers think the burial vaults were part of a Presbyterian church cemetery, though the church is long gone. One of the crypts was heavily disturbed. It had already been ransacked and the skeletons pushed around. The heavy, decayed corpses of almost a dozen people were shoved into a corner of the crypt. More than a dozen wooden coffins were stacked up like boxes on moving day. The main researcher of the crypts was Chrysalis Alyssa Laura, who said, "You never know what you can find beneath the city's streets." Boy, is that right. She said sometimes that people are buried to be memorialized, but then they're forgotten. Scientists have already taken photographs of the coffin plates, hoping to identify the buried, but the dead won't be going anywhere. New York City has a strict policy about leaving burial grounds undisturbed. Project engineers were forced to plan a new route for their waterman and seal the crypts back up. But there is more to the story. To understand why the crypt was buried, you need to know about the disaster that happened in New York City at the end of the 18th century. The excavation work was being carried out next to Washington Square Park in what used to be a potter's field for victims of yellow fever. The people buried in the crypts were likely among those who perished during the yellow fever epidemic of 1795 to 1804. It began in Philadelphia in 1793 with 5,000 people in the city. Why dying from yellow fever? It was such a disaster that the very first Board of Health Department was created to stop the spread. New York City quarantined boats coming in from Philadelphia, and although the initial efforts helped delay the epidemic, they couldn't stop it. Does any of this sound a little familiar to you guys? Yellow fever exploded in Manhattan like the plague. Those affected suffered from headaches followed by exhaustion, and then came the burning fever, delirium, and characteristic yellow skin. Trust me, you don't want yellow fever. The delirium isn't even the worst part. After you've gone completely insane, you vomit black bile until the end. New York City and especially Manhattan was a living nightmare until the epidemic was over. Wealthy residents fled the city in droves. Physicians didn't even know where the fever came from. This crypt is a small reminder of those dark times that most people have forgotten about, the Palace of Bones. In a remote region of Russia, archaeologists have unearthed a staggering discovery. A colossal palace constructed entirely of mammoth bones. Dating back 40,000 years, this extraordinary structure offers a glimpse into the lives and practices of our ancient ancestors. Experts are trying to understand how this castle of bones was built tens of thousands of years before civilization got started. Located 300 meters south of Moscow, the site revealed a staggering pile of mammoth bones. These bones were meticulously lashed together to form a massive fortress-like structure. The scale is hard to understand. It required the remains of at least 60 mammoths to build. Archaeologists and historians have no idea what was going on here. They found the remains of charred wood, proving that Ice Age humans were lighting gory bonfires inside the Palace of Bones. But why was this a ceremonial complex, perhaps the first temple in the whole world? And why build it out of bones when there were perfectly good trees nearby? The construction itself is a marvel of engineering. The walls were composed of mammoth jawbones and skulls, while the interior framework was supported by countless other bones. This monumental undertaking raises questions about the relationships between humans and mammoths during the Ice Age. Dr. Alexander Pryor from the University of Exeter said mammoths and humans may have come to this particular area because of a natural spring. Remember, the palace was built in the Ice Age, so most of Russia was covered under a blanket of ice. This one spot may have offered fresh liquid water, which was critical to the survival of mammoths and humans. When the palace was built, Siberia was even colder than it is now. But for whatever reason, the nomadic hunter-gatherers expended unnecessary energy to build a palace of bones instead of using easier materials like wood. This means that it held significant cultural or spiritual meaning for its creators. This palace must have been extremely important. A very disturbing mummy. Something ghoulish has been found in Peru that will make your skin crawl. An adolescent mummy was discovered in an underground tomb wrapped in airtight bundle. It dates back to centuries before the Inca Empire. Archaeologists near the capital of Lima said the mummy is more than 1,000 years old. Inside the tomb were ceramic brave goods, a rope, and some pieces of skin and hair. It's a little eerie. Check out this picture from the site thanks to Sebastian Castella. It shows a worker wrapping the decayed skeletal remains and parts of the ceremonial bundle. That's a really ancient bundle of rope you see there. Even though Peru is most famous for Machu Picchu and the Inca civilization, it has a lot more going on. The mummy was discovered in Cajamarquilla, which was home to the Lima culture. Cajamarquilla was an ancient Peruvian city hidden in the mountains and shrouded in mystery. Once a bustling metropolis, it served as an important trading hub 1,200 years ago. But by the time the Spanish arrived and met the Inca, Cajamarquilla was long gone. Scientists believe climate change and natural disasters made living in the city such a nightmare that everyone fled. However, there is no proof as to where everyone went or if there were other factors at play that led to the city's abandonment. The city's ruins offer a glimpse into its past with temple pyramids, boulevards and vast cemeteries revealing the intricate details of its society. In recent years, archaeologists have made startling discoveries within these ancient burial grounds. It's the cemeteries that get all the attention. In 2021, archaeologists at the National University of San Marcos found a mummy tied up with string like a Christmas ham. This creepy find was followed by the discovery of 6 mummified children believed to have been sacrificed, said to accompany an elite man into the afterlife. While the motivations behind these sacrifices remain unclear, the recent discovery of the teenage mummy buried with a long rope adds another layer of intrigue. What was the purpose of the rope in the afterlife? Maybe they were going to try to escape and climb out of the underworld. Wine with a gruesome surprise. Wouldn't it be nice to take a sip of real Roman wine made in ancient times? The opportunity recently came up when scientists found liquid wine in a Roman mausoleum in Carmona, Spain. And believe me when I say it's a good thing they didn't drink it. It's the oldest liquid wine that's ever been found, but it had a rather gruesome surprise inside. The wine is a gunky sort of red color, which isn't ideal since it started out as white wine. It had been stored in a glaciary urn in the ancient mausoleum. The researchers could hardly contain their excitement as they rushed the urn and its liquid contents back to their laboratory. One of the scientists involved was José Rafael Ruiz Abola. He said the wine is 2,000 years old. It's the first time in history this discovery has been made. Can you guess the age of the oldest wine ever discovered? Ancient wine residue has been found from 8,000 years ago. But up until this discovery, the oldest liquid wine was only 1,700 years old, found in the German city of Speyer in 1867. To this day, that wine bottle has never been opened. It's been sealed since the 4th century. Scientists find traces of wine all the time, but that's normally all they find. Traces. This is still liquid. But is it drinkable? Nope. Even the Romans wouldn't have drunk this wine. It was used in a disturbing burial ritual. Archaeologists know that wine played a major role in ceremonies and rituals throughout the world of the Romans. Wine has been fundamental in ceremonies since humans figured out how to make the stuff. What archaeologists didn't know was that Romans were mixing their wine with cremated bones. When they first discovered the liquid, the researchers were suspicious from the start. The fact that the wine was discovered inside an airy urn was weird and suggested something gross was going on. Nobody was too shocked when they identified human ashes in the wine. Okay, but why? Wine is a staple of ancient Roman tombs. When someone died, their loved ones would bury them with a feast, water, food, delicious honey, and wine. It was to make sure that when they reached the afterlife, they would have a good meal. But this era is different. The cremated remains of a person were immersed in the wine and then buried. Perhaps someone was planning on drinking the dead, but thought twice at the last minute and left the bottle in the tomb. Pyramid or power plant. Let me introduce you to a very controversial pyramid. They call it the unfinished pyramid. But what if it was finished and then something went horribly wrong? What's been found inside is enough to change the history of Egypt and humanity forever. I know you know of the Great Pyramid of Giza, the massive triangular wonder that conspiracy theorists, historians, and sci-fi lovers all argue about. But did you know that just a short distance away, hidden in plain sight, there is another pyramid that is even more baffling? Meet the unfinished or possibly obliterated North Pyramid of Zed El Aron, built between 2613 and 2494 BC. Mainstream archaeologists like to call it the unfinished pyramid. But what if it was actually finished and then destroyed? There is a belief that the Zed El Aron pyramid wasn't just another tomb for some name, less pharaoh. Oh no, it might have been something much more advanced, possibly even high-tech, like a pyramid-shaped power plant. Because let's be honest, ancient civilizations may have known way more than we give them credit for today. I mean, they built these things without Home Depot, so clearly they were resourceful. The North Pyramid of Zed El Aron sits a little more than a mile southeast of the Giza pyramids, alongside another lesser-known pyramid called the Leia Pyramid. Unlike the big tourist attractions, these structures don't get much love because they are mostly ruins. It's like comparing the Mona Lisa to a pile of rubble. One's a masterpiece and the other kind of existed. Alessandro Baranti was an Italian archaeologist who started digging here back in 1904. He found some pretty weird stuff, things that didn't quite match the just another burial site theory. Among his findings was a giant underground chamber and most amazingly a polished granite bathtub-like structure. Sounds luxurious, right? Who doesn't want a nice sudsy bath in their eternal death chamber? But hold on, this wasn't a royal jacuzzi. This so-called bathtub was a perfectly oval granite vat carved directly into the bedrock, polished to mirror-like perfection, not your everyday tomb decor. This thing was sealed airtight with a fitted granite lid, almost as if it was meant to contain something powerful or dangerous. Imagine the pressure. Honey, did you remember to seal the granite vat of potentially volatile ancient energy? Oops. Some researchers have pointed out that this bathtub strongly resembles the giant stone boxes of Serapeum, another mysterious Egyptian site filled with the massive precision-cut granite chest that modern technology still can't replicate. So what was it for? Some theories suggest it may have been used for liquids or gases, perhaps as part of an energy system. And speaking of energy, most researchers will tell you pyramids were built for pharaohs to chill in the afterlife. And while it's true that the biggest pyramids, like those at Giza, don't have royal mummies, probably because they were stolen thousands of years ago, that doesn't mean that no bodies have been found in the pyramids. In fact, some have yielded human remains, though often not in the grand sarcophagi. You'd think that if these were tombs, at least one pharaoh would still be hanging around, right? Many kings and nobles were buried somewhere else, mostly in the Valley of the Kings. This has led some researchers to suggest that pyramids, including the one at Zed El Aron, were in fact technological structures, possibly power generators. Apparently, there is some science to back it up. For example, underground water channels beneath the pyramids may have created electricity through sound vibrations and electromagnetic energy. The pyramid shape and materials may have amplified cosmic energy, an idea that Nikola Tesla himself had before his untimely demise. The mysterious granite vat at Zat Arian may have played a role in this energy system, perhaps containing reactive substances. Does all this sound crazy? Maybe. But let's not forget that mainstream science once laughed at the idea of black holes and quantum entanglement. Now they're in textbooks. Here's where things get even weirder. Since 1964, the entire pyramid site has been inside a restricted military zone. Off-limits, no digging, and no exploring. Why? Maybe the Egyptian government doesn't want people messing with ancient alien technology. Maybe there's something underground they don't want us to find. Or maybe it's all just a coincidence. Adding fuel to the fire, nearby pyramids like the bent pyramid of Dashur show signs of explosions, as if something inside them went terribly wrong. Could the North Pyramid of Zedilan have suffered the same fate, some sort of Chernobyl disaster of 3000 BC? What do you think? Are we looking at an unfinished tomb, a destroyed power plant, or something even wilder? Let me know your thoughts in the comments because this mystery is far from over. A nuclear civilization 2 billion years ago. Nuclear energy was being produced on this planet 2 billion years ago. Scientists are struggling to understand whether it was Mother Nature pumping out the radiation or a secret society that existed over 1 billion years before the dinosaurs. In 1972, a scientist at a French nuclear processing plant was conducting a routine uranium analysis, the kind of task that is supposed to be boring and predictable. But something wasn't adding up. The uranium sample, which came from a mine in Oklo, Gabon, was just slightly off. The math wasn't mapping. To the untrained eye, it was an insignificant detail, a fraction of a percent missing from the expected amount of uranium-235, the isotope that led nuclear reactions. But to the experts, that tiny discrepancy set off alarm bells because somehow 440 pounds of uranium-235 had vanished. To put that into perspective, it's enough uranium to build half a dozen nuclear bombs and make fallout a reality. But here's the real shocker. The uranium wasn't missing. It had already been used. As scientists dug deeper into the ACW uranium deposit, they stumbled upon a discovery so mind-blowing that it defied everything they thought they knew about nuclear science. The mine itself showed signs of a controlled nuclear chain reaction, one that had been running 1.8 billion years ago. That's like finding a working iPhone in the Stone Age. This nuclear reaction didn't just occur for a few minutes, not even just for a few days. It went on and on for at least 500,000 years. So, how is that even possible? Who or what built this reactor? Scientists quickly labeled it a natural nuclear reactor. Conspiracy theory enthusiasts or ancient astronaut theorists would say, don't think for a second our mainstream science buddies are going to give in to the idea of an ancient nuclear civilization. They would rather believe a rock did it all by itself. The idea was that under perfect conditions, a natural deposit of uranium-235 could have spontaneously ignited a self-sustaining fission reaction. But here's the thing, the more the scientists investigated, the less natural it all seemed, and the harder it was to dismiss the reactor as a product of Mother Nature. Perhaps the biggest mystery of all, though, is how the reaction started in the first place. When the uranium deposit at Olo first formed, the concentration of uranium-235 and natural deposits would have been too low to initiate a self-sustaining nuclear reaction. But somehow a reaction did take place, which means one of two things. Either the laws of nuclear physics behaved differently 1.8 billion years ago, or someone enriched a uranium deposit. If uranium-235 had been artificially enriched, that would imply that an advanced intelligence far beyond what we associate with prehistoric Earth was responsible for building Aqua's nuclear reactor. How do you like this crazy idea? I mean, Mother Nature can do some pretty incredible things. The Aqua phenomenon is still widely accepted as a natural occurrence, albeit an extremely rare and puzzling one. But the skeptics remain unconvinced. How did the reaction start? How did it remain stable for so long? And how did nature design something that modern engineers still struggle to perfect? We may never have all the answers, but one thing is clear. The Alo reactor isn't just a scientific anomaly. It is a window into a past that we barely understand. And now for a quick break because it's shout time. I want to give a big thank you to its Alia Renee and Jen Rules for supporting this channel. We wouldn't be here without you guys. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. Who are the shadow people? Have you ever seen something move from the corner of your eye, but when you turn your head, there's nothing there, and then your brain has to do a quick system reboot, trying to figure out if you just saw a ghost or if it's a trick of the light? If this is something you've experienced, you may have had a glimpse of them, the shadow people. Welcome to an unnerving world of the supernatural. The shadow people are eerie dark silhouettes that have been creeping around human history for centuries. Are they ghosts? Interdimensional beings, astral travelers, time-traveling weirdos who took a wrong turn? No one knows for sure, but people from all over the world report seeing them. And the experience is downright terrifying. The thing about shadow people is that they are hard to describe. Probably because they don't stick around long enough to pose for a selfie. Witnesses usually describe them as tall humanoid figures that move fast, really fast. They are two-dimensional shadows that don't quite follow normal physics. They often appear shaky, blurry, or fluid-like, sometimes seeming to vibrate like they're glitching in and out of reality. And the worst part, they don't just lurk in haunted houses or spooky forests. They show up in your home. Yes, your home. Don't look behind you. People have reported seeing shadow people while reading, watching TV, or even lying in bed trying to sleep. One second you're minding your own business, and the next a dark silhouette zips across the room or stands ominously in the corner. Great. Another thing to add to the anxiety of being alive. As if axe murderers weren't enough to worry about, now you can stress over ghost creatures. But in all seriousness, what are the shadow people? One theory is that they are ghosts, possibly restless spirits from another realm. But unlike the traditional wispy, foggy ghosts from movies, these figures are darker than dark, more like voids than apparitions. But here's the weird part. People who have seen both ghosts and shadow people say they feel completely different. Ghosts tend to have a human-like presence, while shadow people feel otherworldly. Another possibility is that shadow people are beings from another dimension accidentally phasing into our world. Kind of like when your Wi-Fi glitches, but instead of buffering a video, reality starts buffering people from another plane of existence. That's kind of creepy. To think we are living close enough to another reality that people can buffer into our realm is some deep Matrix-level sci-fi. But maybe shadow people are humans from the future using advanced tech to observe us. Although, I don't know why. I don't know if we are really that interesting. Maybe their invisibility cloaks aren't as foolproof as they thought, and every now and then they accidentally glitch into view for a split second before vanishing again. According to Jerry Gross, an expert in astral projection, when humans sleep, our spirits leave our bodies and explore the universe. Verse. Some believe that shadow people are astral travelers, people who are out of body and unknowingly creeping into someone else's reality. Have you ever seen a shadow person? If so, let us know your experience in the comments. I really want to hear your story. The sphere of impossible truths. Not all mysteries begin with flashing lights in the sky or cryptic signals from space. Some appear in the most unassuming ways, like a silent, seamless metal sphere resting in the grass. In 1974, the Betts family stumbled upon just such an object on their Florida property. At first, it seemed like a lost piece of machinery or an old cannonball, but soon, the sphere began to move on its own. It vibrated in response to music and even appeared to follow people around the house like a puppy. Maybe this thing was an alien version of a robo-dog. The U.S. Navy, scientists, and even renowned UFO investigator J. Allen Hynek attempted to uncover its origins. Heck was up to his neck in the paranormal. Some dismissed the orb as an industrial part, and others believed it was something far more mysterious. Then it vanished. 50 years later, the Betts sphere remains one of the strangest unsolved cases in UFO lore. But what was it? And where is it now? Terry Betts, the family's 21-year-old son, was the first to notice something wasn't right with the orb after they brought it home. When he played his guitar, the sphere began to hum and vibrate, resonating as if responding to the sound. The Betts' dog reacted in terror, whimpering, covering its ears and trying to leave the room. Then came the even stranger part. Placed on a flat surface, the sphere would roll on its own, stopping suddenly and then changing direction. It had a mind of its own. On a tilted floor, it would roll uphill, defying gravity. When placed on a glass coffee table, it moved but never fell off as if aware of the edge. Newspapers reported that the Navy ran a battery of tests at Naval Station Mayport. X-rays revealed that the sphere shell was about half an inch thick and made of stainless steel alloy 431, a material commonly used in aerospace and industrial applications. The X-ray showed that inside was something dense and unknown, but not radioactive, explosive, or electronic. The military returned it to the Betts family, concluding it was not of military origin, but their vague report only fueled further speculation. Meanwhile, our friendly neighborhood UFO researcher J. Allen Hynek, famous for his work on Project Blue Book, investigated the case. Many believed if anyone could prove its extraterrestrial origins, it was him. But in the end, the Hynek's verdict was inconclusive. As media attention grew, the Betts family became overwhelmed. Their once fascinating discovery had turned into an invasion of their privacy. Then, as abruptly as they found it, the sphere disappeared. The Betts family stopped speaking to reporters. They refused interviews, and no one, not even researchers who once examined it, could confirm where it went. Some say the family hid it away, others believe it was taken, either by the government or aliens wanting their technology back. Whatever the Betts sphere was, it has never resurfaced. The Lost Pyramid of Samoa. What if I told you there is a giant star-shaped pyramid hidden in the jungle and nobody knows who built it or why? Intrigued, you should be. Deep in the untamed jungles of Samoa, hidden beneath layers of dense vegetation, lies one of the South Pacific's greatest mysteries. A towering structure that has puzzled experts for centuries. Hula Malay Mound is a roughly 40-foot-high stone marvel. It stands as the largest and oldest pyramid-like structure in Paulínia. But what was its purpose and why was it abandoned? For over 300 years, the answers have remained elusive. But now, cutting-edge technology is peeling back the layers of time, revealing a long-lost civilization far more complex and advanced than previously thought. Located on the island of Savi, Kulima Mound is an architectural anomaly. Built in stages over centuries starting around 1000 AD, this massive 8-pointed structure was designed with remarkable precision. Its edges aligned almost perfectly with the cardinal directions. From above, it resembles a colossal stone star. You have to see this thing out of the window of a plane to fully comprehend how amazing it is. It looks like a perfect stone star stamped into the earth. Like someone took a giant cookie cutter and boom, star pyramid. But no one knows who built it or why. Archaeologists and local historians have, of course, put forth several theories: a sacred religious site used for rituals and ceremonies, a strategic lookout point, a burial monument for a powerful ruler or spiritual leader, or a platform for pigeon steering competite, ions, which is a significant Samoan tradition. I didn't just make that up. Despite decades of excavations, no single theory fully explains its true function, not until now. Using advanced laser mapping technology, researchers detected the faint outlines of an entire lost settlement on the Samoan island. Hidden beneath the jungle floor, what was once believed to be a ceremonial site turned out to be the centerpiece of a vast pre-colonial city. Evidence of a thriving civilization that existed long before European explorers arrived in 1722. The Samoan pyramid is like the crown on the head of a forgotten culture. Laser scans have shown that the jungle is burying a whole civilization, countless buildings and other strange structures that will take scientists decades to study. Think of all the documentaries we'll get out of this. A lost race of giants confirmed. Forget Area 51. The real weirdness in Nevada isn't aliens, it's giants. And I'm not talking about those novelty roadside attractions. Deep in the Nevada desert, hidden within the dark recesses of Lovelock Cave, an ancient secret may be buried. One that challenges everything we know about human history. Let me tell you the tale of the red-haired giants towering 10 feet tall who once roamed the Americas. For centuries, the Peyote people spoke of the Site-Ka, a tribe of fierce, cannibalistic giants who terrorized their ancestors right up until they were driven into a cave and burned alive. Now that's revenge served hot. But is this a myth or a real thing that happened to the last surviving giants? Archaeologists have uncovered artifacts and skeletal remains that raised chilling questions. And now new discoveries are reigniting the mystery. The best place to begin is 1911, when miners digging for guano fertilizer in Lovelock Cave stumbled upon something far more valuable and far more bizarre. Among the layers of sediment, they found enormous human-like bones, a 15-inch-long sandal, and a massive boulder with what appeared to be a giant handprint on it. Their discovery led to official excavations in 1912 and 1924, revealing over 10,000 artifacts and mummified remains. According to reports, more than 100 years old, some of these skeletons measured between 8 and 10 feet tall. Then came another bombshell. In 1931, a local Nevada newspaper reported the discovery of 2 more giant skeletons found in a nearby dry lake bed. The article described these remains as being mummified in a manner similar to ancient Egyptian burials. But this was all in Nevada. Who would have thought that Vegas was built on the stomping grounds of ancient giants? Were these tall humans or evidence of something far more extraordinary? The idea of giants isn't unique to Nevada. For centuries, cultures around the world have passed down tales of towering humanoids, from the Nephilim of the Bible to the Titans of Greek mythology, but few legends are as eerily detailed as those of the Pute tribe. According to Pute oral history, the Sika were red-haired giants with incredible strength. They were aggressive warriors and cannibals who preyed on smaller tribes. They were also seafaring people who arrived in the Americas by boat from parts unknown. After years of warfare, the Pute tribes united against the Sita. The final battle led the last surviving giants into Lovelock Cave, with the Pute tribe set a massive fire at the entrance, trapping them inside. When archaeologists first excavated the cave, they did find evidence of significant burning at the entrance, confirming the legend. Some researchers believe these alleged giants, they were nothing but tall humans with naturally occurring genetic anomalies. Or could there be a lost chapter of history we have yet to uncover? You're probably wondering about the skeletons. If they were still around, scientists could easily tell if they were giants by studying them, right? But they are not still around. The giant remains from Lovelock Cave seem to have vanished. Almost all mention of them has been scrubbed from academic records. Some claim they were sent to museums and universities only to be locked away or lost over time. Others believe there was a deliberate effort to suppress evidence that didn't fit into mainstream historical narratives. The Smithsonian Institution, which has been rumored to have collected several of these skeletons, has denied possessing them. So, where are they now? And why do reports of giant skeletons keep resurfacing only for the remains to disappear? Super advanced Maya technology. Now, let's travel to Palenque 600 AD. Imagine the raw, vibrant chaos of a Maya metropolis. You would be surrounded by temples, squares, and amazing people. The jungle would be all around you, the sound of birds and the cries of Maya merchants, and above it all, a sound that would make your modern-day speakers and subwoofers seem like a cat's barely audible meowing. The Maya were rocking the ultimate sound system, one that didn't require Wi-Fi or batteries. According to archaeologist Francisco, Maya temples were designed to be loudspeakers. Maya temples were specifically designed to amplify sound and possibly even mess with your mind. Franciscoca and her team's findings are jaw-dropping. The northern group of temples at Palenque in central Mexico is an ancient acoustics marvel. These temples were built to project the human voice and the sounds of musical instruments across great distances. In case you're wondering what kinds of instruments the Maya used, forget about drums and guitars. They had rattling gourds, turtle shells played with deer antlers, whistles, ocarinas, and seashells. Maybe someone should make a modern version of a Maya band with all the same ancient instruments. Priests and performers stood on top of these massive temples, belting out chants and songs during public ceremonies. Their voices carried all the way across the square. The Maya hosted epic ceremonies for enthronements and births, war victories and festivals for tea. He gods. The more dramatic the sound, the better. Zelika's team suspects that Maya even used stucco, the same stuff you find on your walls, to intentionally change how sound was absorbed and reflected. It's like they were adding acoustic enhancement, and there might be more to it. There are rumors in scientific circles that ancient civilizations understood how to use sound as a technology. It's been suggested that the Egyptians used sound waves to lift massive stone blocks while building the pyramids. Some even suspect that with the right focus, sound waves can be used to cut stone with the precision of a laser beam. By the way, the Maya did not have a monopoly on mind-bending sound design. In the Peruvian Andes, researchers uncovered a stone labyrinth that not only amplified sound, but may have been engineered to disorient the listener. Imagine entering a maze where the echoes bounce off every stone surface so rapidly you'd swear that sounds were coming from every direction at once. Miriam Kohler from Stanford Center for Computer Research and Acoustics said the echoes are so intense in the Peruvian maze that it messed with people's minds. Plus, those who wandered through the maze with air probably on psychoactive drugs, like the San Pedro cactus known to have been used in ancient shamanistic rituals. Sound technology and drugs were very common in the ancient world. It's hard for us to imagine what a ritual or a spiritual journey would have been like so long ago. If you want to learn more about ancient technology, be sure to subscribe and check out some of my other videos. The Keys to the Gate of the Gods. Hidden deep within the history of Peru among the ruins of long-lost civilizations lies one of the most puzzling artifacts ever discovered. Bronze gears believed to open a gateway to the world of the gods. Are they remnants of an ancient machine, proof of an advanced civilization, or decorative sundisks? Maybe they were just really fancy coasters. Even more intriguing, could these gears be the legendary key to unlocking the fabled gate of the gods at Ayimara? Spoiler alert, no one has found the open button yet. Let's start with the gears themselves, which were first mentioned by Professor Rafael Lago Hoy in his book titled Peru. A little generic, but hopefully you can find it if you're interested. There is almost no information about how or where they were found. The professor described them as intricately designed bronze discs with gear-like teeth, eerily resembling modern mechanical components, but he really messed up their backstory. The gears could have been part of a long-lost machine. They may have been ceremonial objects from an ancient sun-worshipping culture. Some have noted how similar the Peruvian gears are to the components in the Antithera mechanism discovered in the Mediterranean Sea. Originally dismissed as a boring artifact, the anti-mechanism was later recognized as the world's first analog computer, featuring complex interlocking gears designed to track astronomical events. If ancient Greeks were capable of creating gear-based mechanical computers, why should it be impossible for an advanced civilization in South America to have done the same? A more mystical theory connects these mysterious years to one of the most legendary megalithic sites in Peru, the Pura de Yumar, the Gate of the Gods. This mysterious door-like structure in the Ao Umar mountain region near Lake Sikaga has been shrouded in legends for centuries. According to local folklore, it is a gateway between worlds used by deities and great heroes to travel between realms. According to an ancient Inca legend, a priest named Amarumuru fled from Spanish invaders through this very door, carrying with him a sacred golden disc. The story goes that when he arrived at the Gate of the Gods, he presented the golden key to shamans who performed a ritual. Suddenly, the doorway lit up with a blinding blue light. Amarumuru stepped through it and vanished, never to be seen again. Some believe that the bronze gears of Peru are replicas of this lost key, perhaps created in later centuries by civilizations attempting to reopen the portal. Who wouldn't want to reopen a portal to another world? If you could teleport to another planet in an instant, where would you go? As for these gears, they remain an unsolvable mystery. Boring old artifacts or forged keys to a dormant stargate. You be the judge. An unprecedented ancient monument, a structure that has never been seen before, is blowing up the world of archaeology. This thing has been called impossible, unprecedented, baffling, and every synonym for confusing you can think of. Hold it on to your Indiana Jones hats. This one's a doozy. And if you don't have an Indiana Jones hat, a regular baseball cap will do. Just brace yourself. A team of archaeologists in eastern France, probably expecting to dig up some old pottery shards and a rusty spoon, instead stumbled upon a mind-blowing ancient structure at a site in Mariens, France, that happens to be near a place called John, just like the mustard. The mystery structure contains 3 interlocking enclosures. The structures date to at least the Neolithic period, meaning they could be as old as 10,000 BC. To put that into perspective, that's when woolly mammoths were still strutting around like they owned the place. Were humans building epic structures and using mammoths to haul the stones around? Maybe mammoth power could explain half of the world's ancient megaliths. At the heart of the discovery is a 36-foot-wide circular enclosure. Sticking into it like a historical puzzle piece is a smaller horseshoe-shaped structure to the north and another open-sided circle to the south. It's like an ancient architect's wild experiment. But what's the deal with this place? It's not a temple or a stone circle or a pyramid. No one has ever seen a structure like it. Right now, scientists are diving into radiocarbon dating, metal analysis, and paleo-environmental studies. Hopefully, they'll be able to piece together the full story of this site and maybe rewrite a few chapters of history. Perhaps the structure was built by an unknown civilization with weird blueprints. Maybe they were too far ahead of their time. Ireland is apparently the real Atlantis. Move over, Greece, because Ireland's got some secrets it's ready to spill. And apparently, they've been keeping them under a pile of shamrocks and a pint of Guinness or something like that. According to researchers at Keystone University, Ireland, they have found proof that the legendary Atlantis is hidden in plain sight, and it's been waiting for us to notice it all along. The proof starts with the ancient Neolithic tomb of New Grange, located in the Buone Valley in County Meath. Apparently, this isn't just any tomb. According to the experts at Keystone U, it's the fabled Temple of Atlantis and one of the oldest temples on Earth. Ireland's backyard could be hiding a temple so old it makes Stonehenge look like a toddler's first attempt at a Lego project. The researchers claim Atlantis was wiped out by a massive tsunami triggered by a comet slamming into Earth over 11,000 years ago. Classic doomsday scenario, and one I think even Graham Hancock of Ancient Apocalypse could get behind. The researchers go on to argue that the ancient Irish were the first people to develop things like boats, fishing, agriculture, and metalwork. Forget those slouches in Mesopotamia. Atlantis, Ireland was the cradle of all civilization. Take that, ancient Samrians. The university scientist said that Irish DNA is scattered all over the globe, proving that Ireland wasn't just an island, but the superpower of its time. If this theory is true, you might want to start planning your next trip to the Bow Valley. You could be walking on the very ground where the world's first highly advanced civilization once thrived. Then things got a little weird. A university spokesperson said it was the ancient Irish who gave the gift of civilization to a barbaric world. Then Ireland's rich history was butchered by her enemies during the Dark Ages. That's pretty intense. I wonder how many Irish people believe their island was home to the original Atlantis. It isn't the first time this suggestion has come up. In 2004, Swedish academic Dr. Ulf Ersson made similar claims. Erlingsson pointed out that Ireland's geography perfectly matched Plato's description of Atlantis. It's 300 miles long, 200 miles wide, and widest in the middle. It is also located beyond the gates of Hercules, the first kings in the world. How long do you want to live? 80 years? 100 years? What about more than 25,000 years? Ink of all the things you could do, the places you could see. The world would be yours. The Sumerian Kings List is an ancient stone tablet that claims that Sumerian kings ruled for over 300,000 years. That would make them the first recorded kings in history, going back to the Stone Age. While this might sound like science fiction, it is a real historical artifact, but it is one shrouded in mystery. Unearthed in the early 1900s, this list and its variations offer a glimpse into Sumerian beliefs, blending myth and reality in a way that continues to fascinate us today and confuse us. The list begins dramatically, declaring that kingship descended from heaven. It started in Eridu with Elulim, who supposedly reigned for a staggering 28,800 years. Think of how much he got done. I can't keep houseplants alive for more than a month. And these guys were chilling for tens of thousands of years. These incredibly long lifespans continue for the first 8 kings, culminating in a total of 241,200 years of rule before a great flood. After the flood, the lengths of the reign dramatically shortened, raising questions about the nature of these figures. Were these numbers symbolic, representing astronomical cycles or forgotten knowledge? Or did the Sumerians truly believe their early kings possessed godlike, near-eternal lifespans? Some French theories propose that these kings were extraterrestrial beings or aliens who genetically modified early humans. The idea isn't as outlandish as it may seem considering the Sumerian belief in the Anunnaki, powerful deities who descended from the heavens. But the mysteries don't stop there. The Kings List has some striking parallels to the Bible. Both the list and Genesis mention a flood that resets human history. Both describe a pattern where early figures lived absurdly long lives like Methuselah and his 969 years that drastically shortened after the flood. Is this a coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe the stories share a common cultural or historical root that predates both texts. Imagine our civilization survives another 1,000 years. By then we might be exploring other star systems, or even altering our DNA to live longer. Could the Sumerian kings have been doing something similar? Some researchers point out that DNA manipulation is no longer just science fiction. We are already editing genes today. Could the Sumerians have been advanced beings who knew how to extend lifespans or travel across galaxies? The Sumerian Kings List leaves us with more questions than answers. How much of it is history, and how much is myth? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. The Voynich manuscript. A picture is worth 1,000 words. But what if those pictures tell a story that no one can decipher? That's the Voynich manuscript for you. You can see this 15th century book at Yale University. It's a mind-bending mix of bizarre illustrations and a language that makes even the most seasoned linguists scratch their heads. Flooping through its pages, you'll find plants that look like they escaped from a Dr. Seuss book, and what appear to be naked ladies enjoying some water slides. I don't know what's going on here. The book gets its name from Wilfrid Voynich, the lucky or unlucky soul who stumbled upon it in 1912. He claimed to have found it hidden away in an old crumbly castle near Rome. And let's just say he knew he was onto something special. The writing is a total enigma. The fancy cursive letters and strange symbols that look like someone tried to draw gallows while drunk. The illustrations are equally out there. We're there, looking about roots that look like human organs, zodiac signs that seem to be having a party, and diagrams that could only be described as biologically baffling. The history of this book is just as wild as its contents. It once belonged to Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II, a guy who was basically the eccentric grandpa of his time. He collected dwarves, had giants in his army, and dabbled in alchemy. So yeah, this book fit right in with his collection of weird stuff. Over the years, some of the brightest minds have tried to crack the code. William Newold, a professor who had a lot of time on his hands, thought the secret was hidden in microscopic ink patterns. He spent years squinting at the book with a magnifying glass, convinced he was about to blow everyone's minds. Spoiler alert, he was wrong. Even William Frere Edmond, a legendary codebreaker who helped the Allies win World War II, threw in the towel. After years of staring at the manuscript, he finally admitted defeat, joking that it might be written in a language that doesn't actually exist. And that does seem to be the case. But more recent research and analysis of the manuscript, using AI and other digital tools, suggests that the EIL illustrations might depict the female reproductive system. Remember, this is supposed to date back to the 15th century, so it wouldn't have been that accurate necessarily. This could have been a coded guide to women's health practices from medieval times. The different kinds of writing suggest the manuscript was written by multiple people, but it's hard to tell who owned it in the past. What we do know is that before Voyage got his hands on it and made it famous, it was owned by Emperor Rudolph II. Voyage himself loved the theory that the text was written by Roger Bacon, a medieval monk who was way ahead of his time. But let's be honest, it could be a hoax. Maybe some clever con artist just wanted to trick rich collectors like Rudolph II. If you want to check it out, there is a digital copy available online to the public. So, take a look and let me know what you think. And now for a quick break because it's shout time. I want to give a big thank you to Dale Dennett and Bobby Welch for supporting this channel. We wouldn't be here without you guys. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already to join the Origins Explained family. The Beast of Geelon. You know how sometimes you see a bug at and think, nope, 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 run away, that's not a normal bug. Well, imagine that, but with a terrifying beast that terrorized a whole region of France. In the 1700s, a once peaceful French countryside was transformed into a killing field, stalked by a mysterious terror that came to be known as the Beast of Geelon. This creature killed an estimated 100 people, leaving a trail of fear and bloodshed in its wake. These weren't your average wolf snatched a sheep kind of attacks. We are talking full-on carnage. People were being found missing their heads entirely. But what was doing this? A wolf? A lion? A mythical monster? Or something else entirely? The story of the beast began on June 30th, 1764, when a young shepherd named Jean Boule was fatally attacked. However, earlier that year, a woman tending cattle had survived an encounter with something described as like a wolf, but not a wolf. This was no ordinary predator. Reports describe the beast as being as large as a calf with a reddish-grey coat, a panther-like tail, and strange black stripes. Its attacks were horrific, leaving some victims decapitated. At the time, France was struggling in the aftermath of the 7 Years' War. So, the beast became both a symbol of terror and a rallying point for a demoralized nation. Newspapers eagerly spread the story, making the beast one of the first media sensations. Was it one animal or several? No one knew, but fear and fascination gripped the public. As attacks continued, the people of Gévaudan fought back with extraordinary bravery. Hunters scoured the woods, and even children weren't safe or helpless. In one famous incident, 10-year-old Jack Court and his friends fended off the beast with sticks themselves. Their courage earned them rewards from King Louis XV. Another celebrated hero was Marie-Jeanne Ballet, who stabbed the creature with a makeshift spear during an attack in 1765, earning her the nickname the Amazon. But even when they fought back, the townsfolk failed to fully scare off the beast, so the king sent in professional hunters. In September 1765, the hunters killed a large wolf they believed to be the monster. The animal was stuffed and sent to the royal courts. But unfortunately, the killings resumed just months later. Was there a second beast, or had the real creature never been caught? Finally, in June of 1767, a local hunter named Jean Chastel shot and killed another strange wolf-like animal. Chastel went full CSI, cutting the beast's stomach open to find human remains. After that, the attack stopped, but certain questions lingered. The creature didn't match the descriptions perfectly, and many wondered if the true beast had slipped away yet again. There are plenty of theories about the beast's identity. Some believe it was either a massive wolf, a lion that escaped from captivity, or maybe even a striped hyena. Others suggest that it was a hybrid animal or an armored war dog. A few even claimed the beast was the work of a human serial killer, using an animal to carry out the attacks. One of the wildest ideas, however, is that it was a werewolf. What do you think? Was the beast of Galden just a misunderstood predator or something far more sinister? The first known giant before air conditioning and reality TV. Before the rise of towering skyscrapers and majestic castles, ancient Egypt was ruled by figures of immense stature. One such ruler might have been Sadak, a pharaoh of the Third Dynasty who could lay claim to the title of the world's oldest known giant. But was he a mythical king brought to life, or was there a scientific explanation for his extraordinary height? In 1901, archaeologists unearthed a skeleton tomb near Beit Khalaf, Egypt, dating back to around 2700 BC. This remarkable find was believed to belong to San, a relatively obscure pharaoh in the grand scheme of Egyptian history. However, it wasn't his royal lineage that captivated researchers, but his astonishing height. Standing at a towering 6 feet 2 inches, Sat would have dwarfed his contemporaries. Sounds like someone ate their veggies. In ancient Egypt, the average male stood around 5 feet 6 inches. Sat's height was truly exceptional. Even the legendary Ramses II, who reigned over 1,000 years later, only reached 5 feet 9 inches. Was this simply a matter of good nutrition, or was something more extraordinary at play? Scientists believe that Sonat may have suffered from gigantism, a condition caused by overproduction of growth hormones. When scientists reanalyze his bones, they found evidence of exuberant growth, a hallmark of this endocrine disorder. If confirmed, San Nak would hold the distinction of being the oldest known case of gigantism in history. Interestingly, despite the potential health challenges associated with gigantism, Sonat was given in a lavish royal burial, and this suggests that his towering stature may have enhanced his authority as a ruler. Why not? People probably found him a little intimidating. Hitler's anti-gravity UFO. What sort of secret Nazi projects did Hitler and his henchmen keep hidden from the public? According to some, they created a bell-shaped UFO. What was it capable of? Just anti-gravity flight, time travel, and even breaking the laws of physics. This is the wild legend of DLA, or the Bell, a supposed Nazi superweapon that some claim was stolen by the United States after World War II. Nazi scientists were known for pushing the limits of technology during the war. From advanced tanks to terrifying VW weapons like the V-2 rocket, their reputation for innovation was enough to scare the Allies. So much so, in fact, that as the war ended, the US launched Project Paperclip, a secret mission to snatch Nazi scientists and their inventions before the Soviets could. Among those scientists was Vera von Braun, who helped NASA build the rockets that sent humans to the moon. But what about Dilaka? According to conspiracy theorists, this wasn't just another tank or a missile. It was a Thunderpfeffer, or a wonder weapon like no other. It was first mentioned in the 1960 book, Morning of the Magicians. It was then later popularized in Igor Bytovsky's 2000 book, The Truth About the Wonder Weapon. Zlako was described as a glowing spinning device that supposedly defied gravity. Some even claimed that it was a time machine or part of an SS anti-gravity program. And then there's the mysterious SS Colonel Hans Kammel, who allegedly oversaw the project. Kammler vanished at the end of the war, leading some to speculate that he traded Ziglaka to the US in exchange for his freedom. UFO enthusiasts claim that this secret Nazi tech led to the infamous Kecksburg incident in Pennsylvania in 1965, when a bell-shaped UFO reportedly crashed. Was this proof that Dilaka lived on? What do you think? Now, here's where things get tricky. Despite all the talk, no actual evidence of DLA exists, at least that we know of. The US did capture plenty of German superweapons, but no anti-gravity devices or time machines, again, that we know of. NASA attributes the Kecksburg UFO to the re-entry of a failed Soviet Venus probe, Cosmos 96. And if the US had mastered anti-gravity in 1945, wouldn't we all have flying cars be? Well, yes now. So, was DLA real, or is it just a mix of post-war Nazi myths and sci-fi imagination? The truth is murky, but one thing's for sure, it's a story that's too strange to ignore: the secrets of Queen Encris. Was Queen Encris a vengeful goddess, or a figment of fevered imaginations? Lost in the midst of ancient Egypt, her story whispers of bloody revenge and a reign shrouded in doubt. Did this mysterious queen truly exist, or is she merely a phantom, a legend born from the creative minds of ancient writers? The tale of Netoras comes from ancient writers like Herodotus, Manetho and Eratosthenes. Manetho, an Egyptian priest from the 3rd century BC, called her the most beautiful and courageous woman of her time. He claimed that she ruled for 12 years and even built the third pyramid. Eratosthenes, famous Greek scholar, said her name meant Athena the Victorious and wrote that she reigned for 6 years. But Herodotus, a so-called father of history, painted the most dramatic picture of all. According to Herodotus, Netorchus became queen after her brother, who was also her husband, was assassinated. Fueled by grief and rage, she devised a cunning plan to avenge his death. She built a vast underground circus, Hamba, and invited her enemies, the people responsible for her brother's murder, to a grand feast. And as they were celebrating, thinking they were safe, Netorchus secretly unleashed the waters of the Nile into the chamber, drowning them all. Herodotus claimed that Rhys then ended her own life to escape vengeance from her enemies. According to the story, she ran into a burning room and perished in the flames, but modern historians have no concrete evidence that she ever existed. There are no inscriptions, statues, or monuments to prove her reign. For a time, scholars thought she might be the mysterious figure named Niti Creti on the Turin king list, but that theory was eventually debuffed. History is full of these maybe she was, maybe she wasn't situations. It's like trying to piece together a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Mono also gave her credit for building the third pyramid, but archaeologists aren't sure which pyramid he meant. Was it one of the famous ones at Giza, or a lesser-known structure somewhere else in Egypt? So, was Nekhris a real queen, a mythical figure, or just an elaborate tale passed down through the ages? What do you think? The man from a parallel universe. One day, in July of 1954, a mysterious man stepped off a plane at Hida Airport in Tokyo. At first glance, there was nothing unusual about him. He looked like an average businessman. He was wearing a suit and tie. He was rocking a beard, and he was holding a briefcase. He spoke multiple languages, including French and Japanese. But when he handed over his passport, things took a bizarre turn. The document said that he was from a country called Tal. And if you're racking your brain trying to figure out where that is in the world, I'll save you the trouble. Tailed doesn't exist, and it never has, at least not in this universe. The man was visibly frustrated and insisted that Tede was a real country located between France and Spain. When shown a map, he pointed to the area called Andorra and grew even more confused. How could the country he had lived in his whole life suddenly vanish from the map? Immigration officials were baffled but suspicious. So, they decided to detain him for questioning. They placed him in a secure hotel room guarded by 2 officers while they investigated. But the next morning, the man was gone. There was no sign of escape. There was no balcony, no unlocked windows, and guards swore up and down that they never saw him leave. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. This puzzling story has become somewhat famous among conspiracy theorists, with some claiming that the man was a traveler from a parallel universe, a world where Toad was real. His odd behavior, along with his detailed yet unverifiable travel documents and multiple currencies, seem to support this wild theory. But of course, others suggest a less dramatic explanation. The entire tale is nothing but an urban legend. Get this, though. In 1960, a man named John Allen Zegris was arrested in Tokyo for fraud. And some believe that his case inspired the man from Tower legend. Zegras had forged a passport from a fictional country, Tede, complete with fake symbols and even an invented language. His goal to scam his way around the world. Japanese officials eventually uncovered the fraud, and as a result, Zegris was sentenced to prison. Although he was released shortly after, his fake passport, which was amateur at best, became the focus of a debate in Britain about passport forgery. Despite his crimes, however, Zeus remained an enigma, disappearing into obscurity after leaving Japan. So, was mysterious man from Tarit a visitor from another dimension, or just a very ambitious con artist? Could Zegras simply have heard this story and played off of it for his own personal gain? After all, his con took place 6 years after the original tale occurred. What do you think? Where is Alexander the Great? You'd think conquering the world would be the hardest thing a guy had to do. Apparently, finding a decent burial plot is even tougher. Alexander the Great is one of the most well-known figures throughout all of history. But you know what is not well known? his final resting place. Nobody knows where Alexander was buried. Why is that? After conquering vast lands from Greece to India, Alexander died suddenly in Babylon in 323 BC at just 32 years old. He conquered the world by 32. His generals fought over who would control his empire, but one of them, Halilami, the first soldier, had a clever idea. Instead of allowing Alexander's body to be sent back to Greece as originally planned, Ptolemy intercepted the funeral procession. Instead, he had the body taken to Memphis, Egypt, likely to solidify his own claim to power. Can you imagine the drama at that funeral procession? But Ptolemy wasn't done yet. In the early 3rd century BC, his successors decided to move Alexander's body a second time to Alexandria, Egypt's new capital, and there they built a grand tomb for him. This tomb became famous, attracting pilgrims and rulers from all over the ancient world. Even Julius Caesar and Emperor Augustus visited, paying homage to the conqueror they admired. The tomb of Alexander the Great was referred to as the Soma, Greek for body, or the Sema, meaning grave marker. But the exact location of this mausoleum is still anyone's guess. Some ancient sources say it was in the royal quarter of Alexandria, but no one has been able to find it. Over the years, Alexander's tomb became a symbol of power. When the first Roman Emperor Augustus visited, it wasn't just a respectful gesture. It was a way to align himself with Alexander's legacy, as if to say, "Look, I'm just as great as this guy." But things didn't stay peaceful for long. By the late 4th century AD, with the rise of Christianity, Emperor Theodosius I closed temples and banned pagan practices. Alexander's tomb was looted, and after that, things started to go downhill. Some historians suggest that the two might have been dead, damaged by a massive tsunami that struck Alexandria in 365 AD. Others believe that after the Arabs took control of the city in the 7th century, the tomb could have been hidden or destroyed. The strangest part of all, travelers reported seeing Alexander's tomb well into the 16th century, but no one has been able to find it since. Some people even suggest wild theories like Venetian merchants stealing Alexander's remains by mistake, thinking they were relics of St. Mark. Others believe the tomb is now submerged underwater or buried deep beneath the modern streets of Alexandria. Many excavations have taken place, and yet the mystery continues. The search for Alexander's tomb is one of the greatest archaeological quests still ongoing today. Will we ever find the final resting place of one of history's most legendary figures? Let me know what you think in the comments. Apollonius of Tyre, the Greek Jesus. Get ready for a historical whodunit. Was Apollonius a genuine prophet, a clever charlatan, or simply a victim of historical spin? The Roman Empire was at its peak during the 1st century AD, when two extraordinary figures were walking the earth. One of them, Jesus Christ, is known by billions today. But the other, Apollonius of Tyre, is nearly forgotten despite having a life story that seems almost identical to Jesus. So, what happened? Were they the same person? Or is it just an amazing coincidence? Apollonius was a philosopher from Cappadocia, a region in modern-day Turkey, with the underground cities and the hot air balloons. He traveled across the Roman Empire preaching his teachings and performing miracles. He was born around 3 BC, and like Jesus, stories about his birth were surrounded by divine signs. Many thought he was more than just immortal. He was said to have ascended into heaven, and some followers even believed that he would one day return to earth. Much like the beliefs about Jesus, this is where things get really interesting. The similarities are hard to ignore. Historians have often pointed out how both Apollonius and Jesus were known for performing miracles. Apollonius was credited with healing the sick, casting out demons, and even raising the dead. He also had a group of devoted followers who believed that he was a divine being sent to guide humanity. Now, if that doesn't sound like a story you've heard before, I don't know what do. Ease. But wait, there's more. Apollonius didn't just live in the shadows of famous emperors. He actively defied them. He boldly criticized the Roman emperors Nero and Domitian, even entering Rome after philosophers were banned under penalty of death. His fearless acts of rebellion made him a hero to many, much like the way Jesus challenged authority in his time. After being arrested, Apollonius gave such a brilliant defense speech that he won his freedom. Despite being widely revered during his time, Apollonius' story almost disappeared from history. The philosopher was honored with temples all over the Roman Empire, but today, few even know his name. Why is that? Some researchers suggest that the rise of Christianity and its growing influence led to Apollonius being overshadowed, even purposefully erased by those in power. Did history get a little competitive and decide to play favorites? One fascinating theory is that Apollonius's life was immortalized in a biography by a man named Philostratus, but the timing of this book raises some eyebrows. Written in the early 3rd century, some believe that Philostratus' work was commissioned by the Roman Empress Julia DNA to offer a pagan alternative to the growing Christian movement. If true, this could mean that the real Apollonius was distorted to compete with the story of Jesus. So, was Apollonius a fraud or a genuine prophet? Did he perform these miracles, or were they exaggerated over time? The truth is, we'll probably never know for sure. The extraterrestrial teachers of Sumer. You ever have one of those days where a fish person just pops out of the ocean and teaches you calculus? Yeah, me neither. Thousands of years ago, a Sumerian was lounging by the rough waters of the Persian Gulf when out of nowhere, a bizarre half-man, half-fish creature emerged from the water and started an impromptu math class. Sounds insane, right? Even crazier is that this man-fish hybrid went on to hold community math classes, teaching all the Sumerians how to add and subtract and do all that other stuff that gives you headache. The creature also taught the Sumerians how to write, how to practice laws, and how to masterfully build epic pyramids and temples. Basically, this was the ancient world's most overqualified tutor. It might sound like I'm describing some weird fever dream, but according to ancient texts, this all actually happened. Ed. The mysterious being was called Oannes, and some researchers, including the legendary Carl Schorn, have asked a daring question. Was Oannes an extraterrestrial super smart fish or cosmic teacher? Perhaps a really dedicated substitute teacher from another dimension. Let's get historical. The Sumerians built one of the earliest known civilizations in Mesopotamia, lasting from 4500 to 900 BC. They had a legend about Oannes, an amphibious being that emerged from the Persian Gulf and spent their days teaching humans the secrets of civilization. According to ancient writers, Oannes had the body of a fish, a second head underneath their fish head, and human legs attached to a fish's tail. It all sounds both terrifying and deeply impractical, and wasn't the only freaky creature around. Check out this bizarre, seemingly Sumerian slab covered in what looks like fishy alien angel things. Mesopotamia was overloaded with more bizarre creatures than Japanese folklore. Alanis was the first in a series of similar beings called the Akalu, who allegedly kept returning to check in on the Sumerians, guiding them through science, law, and architecture. Did you remember to balance your checkbook? Sumerians. And what about those triangles? Are they still pointy? Keep in mind this is the same culture who worshipped the Anunnaki, but the Apkallu were not the Anunnaki, even if their stories are similar. Weirdly, the Apkallu were never described as gods. That in itself is rare considering that most ancient people loved turning mysterious figures into deities. The Apkallu, unlike the Anunnaki, who used humans as slaves, only seem to have one purpose. They only wish to educate humanity. There are even multiple historical references to their visits, suggesting they weren't just a one-off legend. The Apkallu were humanity's earliest babysitters, making sure the first humans were on the right path to building a good society. Of course, you don't have to believe the Apkallu were aliens. There are many scholars who believe the Apkallu story was just a metaphor, a way for the Sumerians to explain how they went from hunter-gatherers to city builders. And then there are those who suggest that the Apkallu were remnants of an advanced lost civilization, one that was wiped out by a great flood. Maybe the survivors passed their knowledge on to the Sumerians and were later remembered as mystical being. Don't ask me why. One theory that's very interesting is that the Apkallu were Sumerian priests wearing elaborate ceremonial outfits, maybe even fish-scale cloaks to honor their water god, Enki. If that's the case, they weren't aliens, gods, or ancient fish people. They were just really smart teachers dressed up. So, what do you think? Ancient aliens, lost knowledge, or just a fishy folktale? Let me know your theories in the comments. The mystery of the cozy Rev mirrors. Scientists created something so insane, I'm going to have a hard time explaining it to you. Have you heard of Kozyrev mirrors? They are reflective chambers said to mess with time, consciousness, and even human perception. Meet Nikolai Kirov, a Soviet astrophysicist who didn't just want to look at stars. He wanted to figure out what powered them. While most scientists were cozying up to the nuclear fusion model, Kozyrev had a more unusual alternative theory to focus on. He thought, what if stars aren't just burning gas, but drawing energy from time itself? Nikolai thought that if the energy of time could be harnessed, it would make nuclear fusion look like someone rubbing two sticks together. He thought I was an energy force, not just a boring dimension we move through. Unfortunately, the Soviet government wasn't a fan of outside-the-box thinkers, so, in 1936, Kozyrev got slapped with a 10-year prison sentence during Stalin's purges. Nothing says scientific progress like throwing your best minds in a labor camp. Instead of breaking him, prison gave Kirov time to think. By the time he got out in 1946, he had a radical new theory. Time isn't just something we move through. It interacts with matter, and under certain conditions can be manipulated. Human consciousness might be able to access time non-linearly, like déjà vu on steroids. These ideas were way too weird for mainstream physics, but they inspired later researchers to create something called Kozyrev mirrors. And that's when things got really strange. Kozyrev mirrors are big curved spirals made of aluminum. Scientists believed that these specially shaped mirrors could focus certain subtle energies, blocking out electromagnetic interference while enhancing human perception. In the 1990s, a team of Russian researchers, including Alexander Trophy and Lyell Kaznachev, ran hundreds of experiments with these mirrors. What happened during these experiments has never been explained. People who stepped inside the aluminum mirror sometimes saw visions of the past and future. They had out-of-body experiences where they felt like they were floating in another dimension. They had heightened levels of telepathy, as if thoughts could travel across huge distances instantly. The volunteers also experienced environmental effects like temperature changes, blood pressure spikes, and strange glowing symbols appearing inside the mirrors. Okay, that's all really spooky, but it gets spookier. The research team conducted telepathic experiments involving over 5,000 people from 12 countries. They saw a 95% success rate in transmitting thoughts remotely, which is statistically way too high to be a fluke. And did I mention that UFOs allegedly showed up near the research labs during these experiments? Of course they did. Some scientists believe the answer to these unexplained results lies in torsion fields, a hypothetical type of energy field that exists beyond gravity and electromagnetism. Torsion fields allow for instantaneous communication across space and time. However, the Earth's electromagnetic field normally blocks our ability, intensity to sense this. When you weaken the Earth's interference, say by stepping into an aluminum mirror chamber, you might just tap into a universal information network. If this theory is right, humans should all be way more psychic than we are. But things like satellites, cell phones, and your unstable Wi-Fi is drowning out our natural abilities. It's an exciting field of study, don't you think? Too bad it's been shut down. The powers that be blame the results of the tests on sensory deprivation, claimed torsion fields are nonsense and swept the whole thing under the rug. Yet, many believe the Kozyrev mirrors are a type of lost technology possessed by our ancient ancestors. Would you dare step into a cozy rearview mirror to flex your telekinesis? And now for a quick break because it's showtime. I want to give a big thank you to Josh P. and Vicky Maguire for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. White Disc in New Mexico. New Mexico is the land of chilly, breathtaking landscapes and a steady supply of unexplained aerial phenomena. If you thought Roswell was the state's only claim to UFO fame, think again. Recently, eagle-eyed intern, sleuths, also known as people who spend too much time on Google Earth, spotted a very suspicious-looking white disk in the remote Sierra Ladrón Mountains. And because the internet is the internet, series exploded faster than a microwave burrito. Nestled about 34 miles northwest of the Sevier National Wildlife Refuge, this thing is just sitting there. It's a perfectly round 30-foot wide, glaringly white circle. It looks like a crashed UFO. It also happens to be chilling at 7,400 feet above sea level, like it's got nothing to hide right out in the open. I even have some coordinates for you in case you want to investigate it for yourself. I'll show them on the screen. Crash UFO, alien trapdoor, or some bizarre backyard Divas Y project. Some say it's a downed UFO. Some say it's an alien hatchway leading to an underground Martian lounge. A few wild theorists even suggest it's the lid to Earth's actual spice cabinet, though it's mostly Dune fans saying that. But before you start building your alien welcoming signs, let's take a look at what's really going on here. According to archived satellite images in 1975, the site had a dark box-like structure on it. By 2003, this round white disk appeared, replacing whatever was originally there, which means unless aliens really love doing home renovations, it wasn't a recent crash. But if it's not the remnants of a flying saucer, what is it? Science and logic suggest it might be a water tank. People in aid regions use them for wildlife hydration and firefighting. Its bright white color could be a reflective coating to reduce water evaporation. If it is just a water tank, sorry for the most boring explanation in the universe. But the case is still open because, as expected, federal agencies have offered zero comments. UFO hunters argue if the white disk were just a water tank, wouldn't they clear it up with a simple "relax guys, it's for thirsty deer"? But no, all we get is radio silence. Very suspicious. A hexagonal pyramid. Where's the one place you would never expect to find a 4,000-year-old pyramid? The Sahara Desert, the snowy tundra of Japan's Hokkaido, or how about the Eurasian steppe of Kazakhstan? All right, history lovers, Kazakhstan is back on the map. Scientists just dropped a bombshell in the world of archaeology. Researchers unearthed a hexagonal pyramid, and it's making scholars rethink everything they knew about Bronze Age circa civilizations. Think pyramids are just an Egyptian or a Maya thing. Think again. This six-sided structure is nothing like the towering pyramids of Giza. It's flatter, wider, and perfectly geometric, standing about 10 feet tall with each side stretching 43 feet long. And here's the truly amazing part. Nothing, and I mean nothing like it, has ever been found in the region before. Archaeologists are scratching their heads trying to figure out who built it, why it's a hexagon, and what rituals it may have been used for. Some believe it was a royal tomb or a ceremonial site, possibly designed to honor someone very important. Based on the precision of the stonework, it's clear that these people weren't just stacking rocks. They had a deep understanding of geometry, astronomy, and engineering. Forget the idea that ancient steppe civilizations like the Scythians were just roaming around on horseback without a clue about architecture. Whoever built this thing in the Kazakh wilderness knew exactly what they were doing. The pyramid was made from massive megalithic stones arranged in a perfectly planned formation. It was likely aligned with celestial events, much like other ancient monuments across the West world. Some experts think it might have been covered in earth, creating a step-style pyramid that has since eroded. Lead archaeologist Ulan called the site's craftsmanship remarkable, noting how the 8 layers of precisely placed stones indicate a highly skilled and organized society. But which society is that exactly? Archaeologists believe this pyramid was built by the Andranovo culture, a Bronze Age civilization that thrived across Central Asia between 2000 and 900 BC. If you haven't heard of them, it's not a problem. Here's what you need to know. They were the first real horse people, domesticating and riding horses long before it became mainstream. They were expert metalworkers, producing intricate bronze tools and gold jewelry. They left behind elaborate burial sites, suggesting a highly developed social and religious structure. The last point is key because inside the pyramid's burial chamber, archaeologists found horse remains, gold earrings, ceramics, and bronze artifacts. Someone was buried under this pyramid, and they were definitely a VIP. The big mystery in this scenario is the hexagonal design. Pyramids are common across the world, but normally they are triangular. Some experts think perhaps it was designed to match the movement of celestial bodies, or it could have a symbolic meaning. Hexagons appear in nature from honeycombs to crystal formations. Was this structure mimicking something sacred? The investigation of the Kiri Kungir pyramid is just getting started. Scientists still have a lot of work to do if they're going to rewrite the history books on Central Asia and civilizations. Kazakhstan's ancient past is way cooler than anyone imagined. Do you have a soul? Turns out death might be a little more sparkly than we thought. Scientists are basically having a full-blown existential crisis because of it. Something that happens at the point of death appears to show the soul leaving the body. You've probably heard of near-death experiences before, people who die briefly and come back seconds or minutes later. These people often claim to have seen a tunnel of light, past loved ones, or even cosmic beings. But what if there is scientific evidence of something fantastic happening in the brain at the moment of death? Dr. Stuart E. Hameroff, an anesthesiologist and professor at the University of Arizona, believes that a mysterious burst of energy detected in the brains of dying patients could be the soul leaving the body. At George Washington University, scientists did something unprecedented. They monitored the brain activity of 7 terminally ill patients minutes before life support was withdrawn. Using EEGs, they recorded the exact moment each patient was pronounced dead. After flatlining, each brain produced a mysterious burst of energy that lasted anywhere from 1 to 20 minutes. Now, let me be clear. When the heart stops, blood flow stops. And without oxygen, brain cells start shutting down, not lighting up like a Christmas tree like what the scientists saw in their EEGs. So, what was this sudden spike in activity? The possible explanations are nuts and some crazier than others. One theory is that the brain simply runs out of oxygen and neurons start firing uncontrollably, creating a cascade of electrical signals. This could explain why people in cardiac arrest report vivid memories or out-of-body experiences. Their brains are flooded with neural activity in their final moments. But here's the problem with that theory. If it's just a random biological glitch, why do so many people report similar high-structured near-death experiences? Dr. Hameroff has a very different idea. He believes that consciousness isn't just electrical activity between neurons. It happens at a deeper quantum level inside microtubules, which are tiny structures in brain cells. Hameroff's theory is that when we die, our quantum information doesn't just disappear. It leaves the body and disperses into the universe. If someone is resuscitated, this is information returns, leading to vivid recollections of the death experience. If the person stays dead, the information remains outside the body, possibly forever. The soul returned to the cosmic void. One of the weirdest things about this study is that the brain activity spike wasn't random. It showed gamma synchrony, a type of brainwave pattern linked to thinking, awareness, and perception. Even after the heart stopped, the brain briefly showed signs of consciousness. And this begs the question, what was the brain perceiving after death? Could this be the moment when people see the light at the end of the tunnel? If you've ever had a near-death experience, be sure to tell us about it in the comments. Do you think the soul physically departs the body after death and goes on a walk around the universe? A Roman cold case murder. There is evidence of a murder that took place 1,800 years ago. We don't have much to go on, but let's give it a shot. Archaeologists in Spain just uncovered a Rune soldier's burial, and it is weird. He was found face down, missing his feet with a dagger stuck on his back. This isn't your average military funeral. It looks more like a scene from an ancient crime. Drama. Was this soldier a deserter, a thief, a victim of some brutal Roman punishment, or was he murdered in cold blood? The discovery took place at Cortloto, an ancient fortress near Olmanjo. Archaeologists were surveying the area before building a solar park, when instead of finding just old walls and pottery, they found the body of a man in a shallow grave near a ditch. Here are the facts that we have to solve. The case. The man was between 25 and 35 years old at his time of death. He was buried face down, which suggests he was either a criminal or a vampire. A Roman puyo or a dagger was deliberately placed on his back, not necessarily in his back. The difference is important. As for those missing feet, scientists don't know if they were severed while he lived or removed after death. The puyo is our biggest clue. This wasn't just any weapon. Puyos were often carried by Roman soldiers, especially officers and elite troops. The dagger dates to the late 1st century BC, but the burial itself likely happened in the 3rd century AD. At the time, Leo VII Gemenina was the only Roman legion stationed in Hispania. But here's the thing, this legion wasn't heavily involved in wars. His job was mostly guarding cities and keeping the peace. Now that you have some context, You choose which theory makes the most sense. One possible explanation is that the soldier was a deserter. In the days of ancient Rome, desertion was one of the worst crimes a soldier could commit. The punishment was a type of execution called fusuarium, in which the deserter's fellow soldiers beat them to death with clubs. Scientists say his missing feet could suggest a punishment for running away. Romans sometimes cut off the feet of deserters to make an example out of them. Another possibility is that this guy was a regular soldier who died in battle, but if that were the case, why the weird burial? Another theory is, could he have been murdered by locals? Romans weren't exactly popular in all parts of Hispania. If he was attacked by local rebels, they might have killed him and buried him in a humiliating way. Face down, dagger on his back, feet removed. What makes all of this even stranger is that the Roman burial was found in a fortress that was already ancient when he died. The fortress of Cortico Loto dates back nearly 5,000 years to the Copper Age. This discovery is one of the most bizarre Roman burials ever found, and it could completely change how we understand military discipline, executions, and conflicts in Rome and Spain. Which theory of this ancient cold case did you like the most? The sky is shaking. Mysterious sky quakes are freaking everyone out, and scientists have no clue what's happening. Have you ever heard a loud boom out of nowhere and immediately assumed that aliens have finally decided to make their grand entrance? I mean, I haven't experienced it, but others have, and you aren't the only one. Sky quakes have been rattling nerves across the globe for centuries, and scientists still have zero idea what's causing them. These aren't just your average thunderclaps or sonic booms from fighter jets. Skyquakes are terrifying, unexplained explosions that echo through the sky like artillery fire, even when there's not a single storm cloud in sight. Think less gentle rumble and more the sky is throwing a tantrum. They've been heard in India, Japan, the US, and beyond, dating back hundreds of years. And they always seem to show up at the worst possible time, often right before earthquakes. In the US, skyquakes have earned some creepy nicknames like the Inika guns in New York's Finger Lakes region. Legendary author James Fenimore Cooper wrote about them in 1850, describing the eerie sounds as deep, hollow, distant, and imposing. Cooper said the lake seemed to be speaking to the surrounding hills, which sent back booming echoes in reply. Similar reports came from New Madrid, Missouri in the 1800s, where eerie booms sometimes preceded earthquakes in Spokane, Washington. A series of many earthquakes plus unexplained booming sounds had everyone on edge in 2001. These skyquakes are still happening in modern times. Despite skyquakes making regular guest appearances throughout history, scientists still haven't pinned down a definitive cause. But here are a few theories floating around. Some researchers believe small, shallow earthquakes can produce loud booms, but that's kind of a bunk theory since a lot of skyquakes happen with no seismic activity at all. Another option is that maybe a fighter jet broke the sound barrier, creating a noise like a sonic boom. It seems plausible until you realize that earthquakes have been reported for centuries. I'm pretty sure there weren't any F-22 Raptors flying around in the 1700s. What about meteorite? Some believe that skyquakes could be linked to meteor showers. Space rocks, sure, why not add cosmic debris to the list of suspects? Then again, a 2020 study suggested that skyquakes might be some kind of atmospheric phenomenon, meaning the booms are traveling through the air, not the ground. Even official agencies like the National Weather Service and U.S. Geological Survey are scratching their heads. In 2017, the NWs in Birmingham, Alabama, posted on Twitter that they don't have an answer and can only hypothesize. Have you ever heard of skyquake before? Was it scary? Let me know your experience in the comments. A mysterious creature. Ancient rock art might just prove that a mysterious horned serpent was more than just a legend. I'm not talking about Satan. This horned beast was a real animal that mixes history, science, and wild myth. Archaeologists in South Africa stumbled upon a 200-year-old rock painting. No big deal, right? Ancient people loved to doodle on walls. Only this particular painting depicts a tusked horned serpent that sounds suspiciously like something straight out of Jurassic Park. It's an animal that looks a lot like a dicynodont, a prehistoric tusked reptile. IAN creature that for all scientists know could have been the grumpiest thing to ever roam the planet. Think about a Komodo dragon with an even worse attitude. Dicynodons were officially described by scientists in 1845. They lived during the late Permian era from around 270 to 252 million years ago. What's insane is that the ancient rock art made by the indigenous sand people predates 1845. So, how did the sand know about Dicynodons before scientists? Did they actually see one of these creatures? If so, I don't know what would happen to the history books. Dicynodons died in the Permian extinction, wiped out with almost all other life in the world. These weird creatures lived even before the dinosaurs did. Archaeologist Julian Baino and his team decided to put on their detective hats, which I assume are fossil-dusted fedoras, and take a deeper look. They found that the painting clearly shows a tusked creature with downward-facing fangs. That's something that no modern African animal has, but Dicynodons did. The painting was discovered near a bunch of tetrapod fossils in South Africa's Karoo Basin, an area practically swimming in Dicynodon remains. The Sand People had long-standing legend, DS about massive monstrous beasts described as being bigger than elephants or hippos. Benno and his team suggest that the Sand may have uncovered dissident fossils themselves and using their impressive imagination connected them to their existing mythology. In other words, the Sand may have been doing paleontology before paleontology was even a thing. Then again, maybe their ancestors rode around on pre-dinosaur monsters. Which do you like the most? Could ancient oracles really see the future? It is the time of the prophecy. Since the dawn of civilization, humans have been obsessed with the future. It's like that one friend who always wants spoilers for a movie before watching it. And because humans had no Netflix in the past, people relied on prophets and oracles to peek into the future. The question I ask you today is, did these prophecies tell us anything useful? Did Nostradamus, the Maya, a bunch of other ancient visionaries crack the code of our world? Nostradamus wrote down 942 predictions, all in vague poetic riddles. If he were alive today, he'd probably be writing cryptic tweets and getting 1 million retweets for them. One of his most famous predictions reads, "In the year of TH, the new century, in 9 months, from the sky will come a great king of terror. The sky will burn at 45 degrees. Fire approaches the great new city." Sounds eerie, right? Some say this predicted the 9/11 attacks. Others argue you could twist the words to fit any disaster in history. Really, that's the thing with Nostradamus. His predictions are just vague enough to mean just about anything. It's like when you read your horoscope and it says, "You will face challenges today." Like, wow, that's every single day for every person on Earth. Not very unique at all. If you think today's apocalyptic movies are intense, just crack open the Bible's book of Revelation. This thing is packed with disasters. War, disease, fire, plagues, you name it. And don't forget the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. People love linking Revelation to global catastrophes. Whenever there's war or famine or pandemics, people point to the book of Revelation and its prophecies of doom. But according to scholars, the book of Revelation was never meant to be a cosmic spoiler alert. Rather, it was meant to give early Christians hope. Did the author of Revelation truly see the end of times? The Romans had their oracles too. They would, errant just about gladiators and togas. They had mystical women who gave cryptic answers to Rome's biggest questions. When the Roman Senate stressed over a war, oracles would be questioned about possible outcomes. One of the most famous oracles, the Sibian oracles, had some serious doomsday vibes. They were always going on about disasters caused by greed, corruption, and overall human foolishness. But they were very cryptic in their prophecies, just like Nostradamus. Meanwhile, the Hopi people of North America were dropping prophetic knowledge centuries ago. Their petroglyphs warn of environmental destruction, societal decay, and greed leading to catastrophe. Unlike Nostradamus, who wrote in riddles, the Hopi were very clear. They left behind warnings that to mess up nature and the environment would doom humanity. The secrets of kissing. Scientists have long wondered what the point of smooshing our lips together is. That universal, sometimes awkward, mostly pleasant, but often sort of weird thing that humans do, like kissing. You know it. Why do we do it? The reason is so shocking that you may never want to do it again. According to Adriana Lamara, an evolutionary psychologist for the University of Warwick, the answer is simple. Our ancient ancestors were really into grooming each other, so we never stopped. We went from picking bugs to picking up dates. A few million years ago, primates spent a lot of time grooming, picking parasites, dirt, and whatever else out of each other's fur. You know, casual bonding activities. And sometimes, when fingers weren't enough, they would use their lips to suck out whatever grossness was left behind. Next up, evolution. As our human ancestors lost their fur, grooming became less about hygiene and more about social bonding. According to Lara's theory, one part of grooming stuck around, the final lip-based moment of contact. The translation here is that grooming turned into kissing. Because even after we stopped needing to defend each other, it just felt too good to give up. In a way, kissing might be a super simplified version of what our ancient ancestors were doing for millions of years, just without the lice removal part. And here's where things get really strange. Everyone kisses, right? Wrong. People in Western societies do, but not all societies. A 2015 study published in American Anthropologists surveyed 168 cultures. They found that only 46% of them practiced social or romantic kissing. That means more than half the world doesn't smooch, which is shocking when you watch nothing but American media. But what does all this mean, though? Scientifically, kissing might not be as deeply rooted in evolution as scientists thought. It could have been accidentally discovered, like fire, coffee, or that time someone decided to eat the first oyster. Some cultures may have just skipped kissing altogether, probably the same ones that don't put pineapple on pizza. At the end of the day, scientists still don't know why people kiss. La theory makes a lot of sense, especially when you consider that our closest primate relatives, chimpanzees and bonobos, also kiss in their own weird little ways. But even Lamara admits it's just a theory, and he could be completely wrong. The next time you lean in for a kiss, maybe go ahead and check for lice too, just like our ancient ancestors did. Now that's love. Antarctica's secret alien cover-up. Antarctica is the coldest, driest and windiest continent on Earth. It is so hostile it has no permanent residents. But that doesn't mean that nobody wants it. It is actually very strategically important, and there was almost a war over who would own rights to the land of the 1940s and 50s after World War II. Remember Operation High Jump, when the US sent thousands of men, ships, and aircraft to Antarctica? Since World War II, rumors abounded of a secret German base, hidden pyramids, and even lost civilizations and alien technology. Antarctica is the world's coldest mystery box that no one seems able to open. Now, it's home to endless ice and about 5,000 very brave scientists. But sadly, not one half-decent coffee shop. But since this place is so icy and unexplored, people can't help but wonder what's really going on down there. One of the greatest tools for armchair explorers like all of us who can't really get to Antarctica is Google Earth. Internet sleuths have identified an area of high potential activity around Ross Island and Beaufort Island, areas known for their volcanic origins and rugged terrain. Grainy, pixelated satellite images of the region have revealed what could be alien outposts. The issue is that the images are really hard to see. For example, check out this picture from Google Earth showing potential alien bases in Antarctica. Is it enough to convince you? Because honestly, I can't tell what's going on. It's too blurry. The so-called evidence looks suspiciously like ice flows, rocky peaks and shadows. Many supposed alien artifacts found in Antarctica have been explained as natural phenomena, like unusual rock formations or meteorites. Think of it this way. If you squint hard enough at a satellite image, almost anything can start to look like a flying saucer stuck in the ice. There is no official reliable agency that keeps a record of UFO sightings specifically for Antarctica, but visitors have reported many sightings of strange lights and unusual movements in the sky. Our brains are wired to find patterns, especially ones resembling familiar shapes like faces or objects. So, when people spot alien bases in a blurry photo, it might just be a shadow cast by terrain or an oddly shaped mountain or an ice formation. Nature can play tricks on you, but something strange has been caught on camera that you might be interested in. Check out this image here. It's a frame from a video posted on YouTube taken of the Antarctic Research Hub New Station 3. Notice the balloon floating over the base. People asked what it with, but no one confirmed that it was just a weather balloon. And so, People like UFO expert Russell Tetrold claimed it was extraterrestrial. And he said that the people need to wake up to the fact that we are getting visits from another race. This picture was taken more than a decade ago, and there is still no definitive explanation. Some say it's a UFO returning to its icy base, and others say it's just a cloud. But if it's a cloud, that is one solid cloud. There are even rumors that New Mare Station 3 is in league with the government, collaborating with the US on top-secret tests involving alien technology and advanced weapon systems. What better place to hide than Antarctica? McMurdo Station is the largest research facility on the continent. It was established by the US government in 1956 and can hold up to 200 people. But something strange happened in more recent years. We don't have to go back to the 50s. Reporter Linda Moulton House spoke with a retired US Navy flight engineer who wanted to remain anonymous, so she called him Brian. He served with the Antarctic Development Squadron at MCM Emero for 14 years. He tells Linda about some very strange experiences during his time in Antarctica. From 1983 to 1997, he was flying in numerous missions, including rescue operations. One day, while flying over the Trans-Antarctic Mountains, the crew saw a bunch of silver shiny round things moving in groups from peak to peak before zooming off. This happened several times. Then he said that during a medical emergency mission, they flew through a no-fly zone and saw a huge slanted cave entrance in the ice estimated to be 200 feet in diameter. Their instruments malfunctioned and they experienced magnetic anomalies, leading them to believe the hole was the cause. Brian says that he and the crew were told never to speak of the incident again or fly over the hole. The secret war in Antarctica. There is indeed a conspiracy being covered up in Antarctica, but it's not necessarily connected to aliens. Britain's secret Antarctic war involves polar men, Nazis, and genetically engineered beings. We're about to go full X-Files. I'm kind of surprised that nobody has made a movie based on the tale you're about to hear. The story begins near the end of World War II. According to claims brought to light by James Roberts and Nexus magazine, the British government allegedly launched a top-secret mission to infiltrate a supposed Nazi base in Antarctica. The base was in Queen Modland, or as the Nazis renamed it, Novobinland, which, let's be honest, sounds like a villain's lair straight out of James Bond. This took place in October of 1945. A British soldier fresh from duty in Yugoslavia was the one sent on this covert mission. First, he was sent to the Falkland Islands for training in winter warfare under the guidance of a Norwegian resistance fighter. No one told him why, only that his survival was not guaranteed and silence was mandatory. The Nazis had built secret bases in Antarctica during the war, and these weren't your average bunkers though. Reports spoke about advanced technology, U-boat docks, and even genetic experiments. The British allegedly believed that the Nazis had begun building a sort of pseudo-scientific city in which they were trying to create genetically modified polar men, not abominable snowmen. They were supposedly super soldiers, just like Captain America, only the Nazi kind. Designed to thrive in sub-zero conditions and fight like the Hulk. According to our protagonist's account, the first British unit sent to investigate the Nazis' abandoned Stroh. Engold stumbled upon tunnels leading to a vast artificially lit cavern. Inside, the British soldiers found lakes, Nazi-built hangars, and what can only be described as the beginnings of an underground city. Only 2 men survived the mission to the underground place. Their final radio transmission ended with the ominous words, "The polar men have found us." A second British unit was sent in the footsteps of the first. They were more heavily armed and carried enough explosives to wage a small war. The story goes that they parachuted into Antarctica to finish the job. Their mission was to locate the tunnels, destroy the Nazi base, and if possible, figure out what the heck was going on with these polar men. And that was exactly what they did. The tunnels were collapsed with explosives, and all trace of whatever the Nazis were doing is now a mile under the ice. The mission was quickly buried under layers of government secrecy. The official story became that the tunnels were naturally formed by glacial erosion, and the polar men were nothing more than isolated Nazi soldiers who had gone crazy. Some theorists believe the Nazis weren't just playing mad scientists in Antarctica, but were also in cahoots with extraterrestrials. But consider this, The Nazis were obsessed with the occult and advanced technologies. The Nazis were more bananas for aliens than that guy on the History Channel with their crazy hair, considering the Nazis' engineering leaps during the war. Could they have had outside help? Did the British destroy bases used to genetically engineer humanoid beings with alien DNA? Hard to say, but the truth is out there. And now for a quick break because it's shout-out time. I want to give a big thank you to for the love of puzzles. I love puzzles. And LM4 in Michigan for supporting this channel. Thanks so much for watching and spending time with us. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. An aircraft, frozen solid. You've heard of Pegasus, the legendary flying horse from Greek mythology. But have you heard of the Pegasus? The aircraft buried in Antarctica for over 50 years. Let me tell you the story of how this plane got to its frozen grave. So this is the tale of braving the bone-chilling cold of Antarctica. October 8, 1970, the Pegasus took off from Christchurch Airport, New Zealand on what should have been a straightforward 10 a half-hour hop to McMurdo Station, Antarctica. But Mother Nature had other plans as she so often does. The flight literally went south. Pegasus, a Lockheed C-121 Constellation, crash-landed in the ice and is still there to this very day. Can you imagine being on that plane? A 10-hour flight suddenly turning into a life-or-death situation. There were 12 crew members and 68 passengers. They inadvertently flew into the worst whiteout any of them had ever seen. They couldn't exactly turn back. Going home wasn't an option. There simply wasn't enough fuel. Commander Grow, cool as ice, tried landing the plane not once, not twice, but 5 different times. That was 5 failed attempts in blinding snow and howling winds. Talk about persistence. On the final try, the plane skidded onto the icy runway, but not without some drama. The right landing gear hit a snowdrift and just gave out, causing the plane to spin like a giant 30-ton figure skater. Despite the wild landing, all 80 people on board walked away alive, and by a miracle, there were no major injuries. Can we just pause to appreciate that? I stubbed my toe on a coffee table, and I'm down for the count. But these folks survived a period. Lane crash in Antarctica. But the Pegasus didn't do so well. Fast forward more than 50 years, and the Pegasus is still chilling at the crash site. Like that forgotten tub of ice cream in the rear of your freezer, half buried in snow and ice. The spot is now called Pegasus Field, named after the plane. Though the field was used as a runway for years, it retired in 2014 because it's pretty much melted. Hard to believe, I know. Today, researchers and occasional tourists dig around the aircraft to snap a few pics. It's one of the only roadside attractions in Antarctica. Next time you're in the area, check it out, and be sure to tag me, The Forgotten Civilizations. Did you know that nearly 98% of Antarctica is buried under an ice sheet that is up to 3 meters thick? That is so much ice that even if Japan's Mount Fuji, which is a whopping 12,400 feet tall, tried to peek out, it couldn't breach the top. I'm saying the ice is thick enough to completely bury Mount Fuji. Oh, and the weather. Forget your puffy coat. Those goose feathers won't protect you from the sub-zero temperatures. In Antarctica, you need something NASA-grade to wear. Temperatures regularly plunge below -50 degrees Fahrenheit with winds that would knock you over at 200 miles per hour. Just another day in paradise, right? Jonathan Young, founding curator of the Joseph Campbell Archives, calls the continent the true last frontier. And he's got a point. Despite being discovered nearly 250 years ago, we still know shockingly little about it. But many scientists agree there is more going on than meets the eye. In July 2018, investigative journalist Linda Moulton interviewed a retired Navy SEAL known only as Spartan 1. Under a thick cloak of anonymity, he spilled the beans about a mysterious mission that took place in August 2003. According to Spartan 1, his team was sent on a covert operation to Antarctica. Here we go again. Spartan 1's mission was officially reconnaissance. Unofficially, it was to track down something unknown. When they arrived in Antarctica, the team stumbled upon an enormous octagonal structure jutting out of the ice. Picture a giant alien igloo, but way cooler. The team cautiously entered the structure, which was mostly buried under ice. The first thing that stood out, massive doors 18 to 30 feet thick. Yet, They opened with the effort of a single finger. Once inside, the team was hit with another shocker. The temperature was a cozy 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit, while it was negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit outside. And get this, the whole place glowed with an eerie lime-green light. But there was no visible source. The walls were covered in strange hieroglyphics that Spartan 1 couldn't identify. They weren't Egyptian or Mayan. These linguistic symbols on the wall came from someone or something else entirely. Like so many stories involving a cover-up, I can't confirm that what I just told you is the truth. All I can do is tell you the information and let you make up your mind. William Henry, author and investigative mythologist, suggests that under all of the Antarctic ice, there might be ancient biological remains, stone temples, and who knows what else. If true, it could be the biggest revelation in human history. Was Atlantis in Antarctica? It's time for one of the world's juiciest mysteries. There is a chance that scientists have been looking in the wrong spot all of these years for the legendary city of Atlantis. It is not beyond the Pillars of Hercules at the end of the Mediterranean Sea. It might be in Antarctica. Why has the story of Atlantis lasted for so long? The tale likely spread through Arab geographers like an idea ague traveling from port to port along the Red Sea. The fable was a form of ancient gossip treated like gold or exotic spices, but with a lot more divine punishment and catastrophic flooding. Plato's works, Timaeus and Critias, describe Atlantis as a utopia that went off the rails. The sin and arrogance of the Atlanteans angered the gods, leading to their spectacular demise through earthquakes and floods. Most Atlantis hunters these days scour the ocean floor looking for signs of the ancient city, but not the late author and Professor Charles Hapgood. He believed the lost city might not be underwater at all. He believed it was hiding in plain sight as the entire continent of Antarctica. Pepcott didn't just think Antarctica was home to Atlantis. He thought the entire frozen piece of land was Atlantis. It was his firm belief that under the ice is a metropolis of such grandeur that when it's finally found, nobody will ever talk about Tutankhamun's tomb again. Okay, cool. But how? Antarctica isn't exactly around the corner from Greece. According to Hapgood, Earth's crust did a sudden shimmy known as crustal displacement. And this tropical paradise got yeeted into the icy southern pole west. I know today. Atlantis was transported by the moving crust of the planet to a completely different location. It may sound completely insane, but Albert Einstein himself thought that Hapgood might be onto something. The guy who literally rewrote the rules of the universe gave Hapgood's theory of crustal displacement a thumbs up. That is eerily convincing, but no one knows if it's true. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but modern investigations into plate tectonics have poured some cold water on Hapgood's theory. Antarctica's icy cover has been there for millions of years. What's your take on the controversy? Could Atlantis really be buried under Antarctica's frosty facade, or maybe another different civilization? Let me know your thoughts. Imminent doom in Antarctica. We are in big trouble. Imagine an ice cream cone on a hot day. The hotter it gets, the faster it melts down your hand and gets you all sticky. Well, scientists have found that the same thing is happening in Antarctica, only the melting Antarctic ice is stirring up explosives. It is bigger than big. We are in huge, scary, intense trouble. Scientists have identified over 100 hidden volcanoes on the brink of erupting, and there is nothing humans can do to stop this disaster. One of Antarctica's most famous fiery giants is Mount Erebus, with its iconic lava lake bubbling like a hot cup of coffee on a Monday morning. While this one gets a lot of attention, there's a whole bunch of other volcanoes lurking beneath the ice just waiting for their moment to shine, or more accurately, their moment to erupt. The hotter the climate gets, the closer the hidden volcanoes are to blowing their tops. Scientists have been stressing the dangers of rising sea levels for years, but this new threat has them in full-blown panic mode. Here's the science behind it. The volcanoes are quietly sitting under heaps of ice, and all that ice is extremely heavy. When the weight of the ice melts away, it's like taking a backpack off a tired hiker. The pressure is relieved and then boom, magma starts to expand. It's the same thing if you open a soda bottle and the bubbles rush out. As the ice melts, volatile gases like CO2 and sulfur that were trapped in the magma start to pop out like carbonation escaping from the soda bottle. The resulting increased pressure in the magma chamber could be the spark that lights the fuse for an eruption. Dozen eons of volcanoes erupting at once is bad news, right? The only good thing is that the eruptions won't be like your classic Hollywood volcano with lava streaming down the sides and ash clouds filling the sky. These volcanoes are subglacial, meaning they are hidden beneath fake layers of ice out of sight. But don't let that fool you. Even though they are hidden, they can still pack a punch. The heat from these eruptions can melt the ice from below, weakening the Antarctic ice sheet and creating a feedback loop that keeps the volcanoes active. Eventually, the active volcanoes won't be subglacial anymore. Then they'll be spewing ash into the atmosphere, which has a good chance of causing a natural nuclear winter. Bye-bye crops. Hello, end of the world. Luckily, the process could take hundreds of years to really get going. We probably won't see the Antarctic cataclysm, but future generations will live in a world where Antarctica is a land of fire instead of ice. Death in the ice. The shocking deaths of 56 million people have been found preserved in the ice of Antarctica. History is frozen in its terrifying tracks. The discovery is all thanks to something you're not going to expect. Tiny bubbles. Antarctica is a place so cold you'd be lucky to survive without a heated blanket inside your heated sleeping bag. All that ice keeping the continent cold amazingly contains the secrets of the world. Bubbles frozen into layers of ice hold the records of everything from volcanic eruptions to major historical events. Have you ever wondered how scientists can know what the Earth was like hundreds of thousands of years ago? It's not like they have a crystal ball or a time-traveling device. They have to rely on ice cores. Ice cores are frozen columns of history packed with little itty-bitty air bubbles. The bubbles have been trapped for centuries, even millennia. As snow falls in Antarctica, it compresses into ice, locking in everything from volcanic ash to gases like carbon dioxide. This is important because all of those gases are a perfect snapshot of the atmosphere at a specific time. By analyzing the gases in the air pockets, which are in the ice cores, scientists can look at secrets of the past. Sometimes those secrets are more horrifying than anyone is prepared for. Amy King, a research scientist at the British Antarctic Survey, described the air bubbles as fossilized at ospheres. It was Amy King and her research team who recently inspected the ice cores and uncovered one of the most gut-wrenching pieces of human history. I'm talking about the European colonization in the Americas, which saw a staggering 56 million people wiped out. This devastating time in history was recorded in the very air of the planet, then was frozen for us to find. It was so bad that it left a mark in the atmosphere. Let's break it down a little bit. When Europeans first landed in the Americas in the 15th century, they brought more than just shiny swords and fancy hats. They also brought diseases like smallpox and measles. Diseases which indigenous people had zero immunity to. On top of that, there was war, genocide, and the brutal impact of colonization. It's estimated that 56 million people perished in just 150 years. The sheer scope of death is unimaginable. As populations dropped in the Americas, large areas of agricultural land were abandoned. And you know what happens when farms get left behind? Nature takes over. In a lot of places, forests that were destroyed by natives grow back, absorbing tons of CO2 in the process. This shift in land use caused a noticeable dip in carbon dioxide levels, and it is all tracked in those ancient ice bubbles I told you about. The atmosphere changed, and scientists can see it today in the ice core data. Now that is a chilling reminder of the past. Amy King's research shows just how impactful human activity can be even when we don't realize it. How amazing is it that scientists can figure all this stuff out in one small bubble of preserved air in Antarctica? The true discovery of Antarctica. Apparently, we've been lied to. Europeans did not find Antarctica. It was a completely different culture that kind of got shafted out of history. For centuries, we've been taught that the discovery of Antarctica happened in the 19th century by Russian and British explorers. It turns out someone else beat them to the punch by nearly 1,200 years. But who? Which ancient civilization could have reached Antarctica by sea? I'll give you a second to guess. Okay, ready? Hope you guessed the Maui because it was the Maui. Those amazing Polynesian sailors reached Antarctica long before Western explorers or Russian explorers even knew the world was round. It was a group of curious researchers from the University of Otago in Dunedin, New Zealand, a land, who made this great revelation. They unearthed oral histories, carvings, and literature that paint a picture of an ancient Polynesian explorer named Rangira. Hewitt Rangira, a Polynesian chief from the island of Rarotonga, was said to have sailed with his crew southward in the 7th century AD. Their mission was to discover new lands. Like Columbus himself, the sailors got all the way to Antarctica, 5,000 miles from their home island. The MI took 70-foot-long canoes and ventured south across the deadly open ocean. That's crazy to think about, isn't it? No one can explain how they knew where they were going without any kind of navigational equipment. But hey, they got there. In the chronicles, the ancient explorers named the new land Tet Tayuka Apia, which means frozen ocean that looks like arrowroot. One famous description from Rangira's journey says they found a foggy, misty, dark place not seen by the sun. There is growing evidence that what I just told you is the real history of Antarctica, as opposed to the old history. According to the traditional narrative, Russian explorer Fabian von Bellingshausen is credited with first spotting Antarctica in 1820. The British explorer Edward Bransfield followed, and a year later, American Captain John Davis became the first to set foot on the continent. Sorry guys, you are all 12,200 years late for the party. Right now, Dr. Priscilla Wei and the University of Otago team are working to correct the historical record and highlight how MI and Polynesian voyaging traditions have been overlooked for centuries. The iceberg of doom. Scientists have identified yet another doomsday glacier in the icy south. It's an iceberg bigger than Los Angeles. A massive chunk of Antarctica just decided to take a little vacation. 600 square miles of ice suddenly slid off the Brunt ice shelf and floated away into the ocean. This happened on January 22nd earlier this year, so pretty recently. The iceberg was born during what's known as spring tide, when the moon and sun align in perfect cosmic harmony to stir things up in the ocean. And trust me, this icebreak was a big deal. Scientists have been monitoring a crack in the ice sheet for years, slowly watching it grow, waiting for the inevitable. And now, after nearly a decade of anticipation, it finally happened. Jane Francis, the director of the British Antarctic Survey, wasn't surprised in the slightest. The scientists at Halley Base even moved their research station in 2016 so that they wouldn't be in any immediate danger when the split came. But what caused this whole situation? Surprisingly, Jane said it has nothing to do with climate change. Ice shelves crack naturally, birthing enormous icebergs. In fact, this is the second major iceberg to break off from the Brunt shelf in just 2 years. The first, nicknamed a 74, was a beast, the size of 20 Manhattan. And now we've got this even bigger one floating around. It's the size of LA. You probably want to know what this means for rising sea levels. Is another monster iceberg going to hasten New York City sinking like Atlantis? Scientists say probably not. In the grand scheme of things, iceberg melting events like this one are just nature doing its thing, like a toddler throwing a tantrum. Except this toddler is the size of a continent. Antarctica has been playing this game for millions of years. Still, watching an iceberg the size of LA slide into the ocean is like watching the world's biggest ice cube take a stroll. Not sure if melting icebergs filling up the world's oceans is a good thing. Humans. In Antarctica 6,000 years ago. Scientists keep trying to tell us that there has never been a civilization in Antarctica. Well, hold on to your hats, because what I'm about to tell you is as shocking as finding a hot dog at a vegan barbecue. Antarctica, the frozen desert at the bottom of the world, the land of penguins, ice, and sometimes no return, apparently had people on it 6,000 years ago. Modern scientists only started to explore it in 1822, but there are maps of the continent that date much earlier. These ancient maps show the continent completely ice-free. These maps that are thousands of years old show Antarctica before the glaciers took over. The ancient cartographers who drew up these maps were apparently navigating the planet at a time when most humans were still figuring out how to invent the wheel. None of this makes sense. So, let's investigate the known facts. Experts like William James Bale, a space archaeologist, yes, that is a real job title, are doing some serious detective work to understand Antarctica's history. Through satellite technology, be uncovered images of what can only be described as human heads on Antarctica's coastline. The heads seem to point to a long sea, civilization at a time before the ice. I know what you're thinking. Apparently, these human heads are not just random rocks shaped like faces. The heads are detailed portraits of what appear to be actual people etched into rocks as enormous geoglyphs. But hold on, because that's just the beginning. Some of the carved portraits even show people wearing tricorn hats. Hello, 18th century fashion, but they are carved on rocks that date to thousands of years ago. Who knew the South Pole had such great taste in headwear? There is only one question that needs to be answered. Who carved these weird heads? Let's get back to those maps I was telling you about, because apparently they might hold the answers we seek. Ancient naval charts drawn up by the likes of Philip Wash and Aurentius Phineas depict Antarctica without its icy blanket. But how could they know? Phipe and Auntius were both around in the 16th century, long before it was thought any living human knew Antarctica existed. Were these guys just ahead of their time, or did they have access to secret knowledge? Marinus of Tyre, an ancient Greek geographer, was also a big deal when it came to maps. In 400 BC, he had access to a map showing Antarctica. And guess what? No ice. But that map is now lost to history. And no one has any idea how Marinus got his hands on it in the first place, or what became of it. If the map did once exist, it could be proof that Antarctica only recently became inundated by ice. Recently, as in the last couple of centuries, which is far from what scientists have been telling us. The maps, the carvings, they all hint at advanced seafaring civilizations that could have been navigating the oceans long before Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Some of the carvings have even been recognized as looking like Hindu gods. It's another piece of the puzzle that just doesn't fit. Thanks for watching. Let me know your favorite in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time.